ready to make their case on why they're prepared to be commander-in-chief amid two wars on the world stage, how they plan to tackle stubborn inflation, and how they can unite a deeply divided electorate. Who is best to take on President Biden? And can any of them first beat former President Trump, who's far ahead in the polls? The candidates are here. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, former New Jersey Governor Christie, and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
From NBC News, the Republican presidential debate. Live from the Adrian Arsht Center in Miami, Florida.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Republican presidential debate. I'm Lester Holt, anchor of NBC Nightly News.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Welker, moderator of NBC's Meet the Press.
Hello, I'm Hugh Hewitt, host of Salem Radio's The Hugh Hewitt Show.
We are now just 68 days from the Iowa caucuses when Republican primary voters will begin to determine their party's nominee for president. Tonight, we'll question 5 candidates seeking that nomination on how they're best prepared to be commander-in-chief. And, of course, how best to bring down prices impacting Americans across the country. We have 2 hours for a serious debate on the issues that matter most to Republican voters. Candidates will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for answers and the opportunity for a closing statement. Follow-ups will be at the discretion of all of us at the table, the moderators. Invoking a candidate's name or policy does not necessarily mean the mentioned candidate is entitled to a response. I want to caution all the candidates not to interrupt or speak over your fellow debaters. If you talk over each other, the voters can't hear you. And given the critical issues we're facing specifically on the world stage, we want everyone to hear every word you have to say. Continued interruptions may result in loss of additional questions. And to our audience, please hold your applause so that the candidates can be heard. With that said, let's have a good debate. All right, our first question, the opening question, is one for all of you. Donald Trump is the first ex-president in more than 100 years to remain popular among Republican primary voters as his legal challenges mount. Governor DeSantis, let me begin with you on this one. Speak to Republican voters who are supporting Donald Trump. Why should you and not him be the Republican nominee to face Joe Biden a year from now?
Because he's there.
This country is in trouble, and the elites that have put us here, they don't care about you. They don't care that you're having to grapple with higher grocery prices or have higher gas prices. They don't care that your family's less secure because of the open border that's allowed drugs and even terrorists to come into this country. Well, I care. I am not going to sit idly by and let this country continue its downward spiral. We need leadership, and we need it now. I'll take the hits. I'll take the arrows, I'll take the slings, because ultimately it's not about me. It's about you. I will fight for you. I will make sure to lead this country's revival, and I will win for you and your family. Actions speak louder than words. We don't have time for excuses, and it's not something that we're going to be able to have all these distractions. As a veteran, I will get the job done. Now, if you look where we are now, it's a lot different than where we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, I showed how it's done. 1 year ago here, we won a historic victory, including a massive landslide right here in Miami-Dade County. That's how we have to do it. So I promise you this, as the nominee, next November, I'll get the job done, and as president, I will deliver.
Your time is up. Let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Audience, let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Why you and not the former president?
Well, I think you look at the fact that we're almost $34 trillion in debt. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have parents who are worried about what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. There's no transparency. We have anti-Semitism all over our college campuses, and students feel unsafe. You've got an open border where terrorists can come through, and we've got wars happening all over us, and there are dangers around us. You know, everybody wants to talk about President Trump. Well, I can talk about President Trump. I can tell you that I think he was the right president at the right time. I don't think he's the right president now. I think that he put us $8 trillion in debt, and our kids are never going to forgive us for that. I think the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues, now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines. We've got to start focusing on what's going to make America strong and proud. And that's what I'm focused on doing. Let's make sure we pay down our debt. I think we need an accountant in the White House. Let's make sure that we have transparency in the classroom. As a mom, I know what that means. Let's make sure we secure our borders so that our families are safe. Let's get crime down, because our families want to know that they can be safe no matter where they go. And as the wife of a combat veteran, I will tell you, the military needs to know we have our back, and we need to make sure that America is strong.
Ambassador, thank you very much.
No, I think that's funny.
Let me just caution the audience. Let's not go down this road. We've asked you to please, keep restraining yourselves, and it would be helpful so we can hear the candidates, because these are important issues, and the voters want and need to hear them. Mr. Ramaswamy, let me turn to you. Please make your case. Why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. It was a cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about, and bringing more people into our party. You think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, Kristen, I'm going to use this time, because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real, or was that Hillary Clinton made-up disinformation? Answer the question. Go.
Oh, it's an acorn.
Mr. Roberts.
Holy
damn, son.
Look at that fake-ass smile.
We need accountability, because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story. And they're going to rig this election with accountability.
Let me turn to Governor Christie.
Governor Christie, why do you eat so many McDonald's cheeseburgers?
Audience, let's not do this. Let's not do this. Let's let the candidates speak. Governor Christie, why you and not former President Trump?
Well, Lester, look, you said it at the beginning of the debate. We are dealing with extraordinarily important issues facing this country right now.
CNN jester.
We have our greatest ally in the Middle East under fire from a terrorist group that has committed to wiping them and every Jewish person in this world off the map.
It's okay. I'll just call it.
We have
It'll be fine.
Ukraine with Vladimir Putin, a communist KGB dictator who wants to put the old band back together. He's starting in Ukraine, and he's going to move to the Baltics and Poland after that. We have inflation in this country that is choking every American family that wants to try to rise up and give their children a better life. And tonight, we need to decide which president is going to be the one to tackle the big issues, who's going to make this country look once again, not just inward, but look outward at the world. And say America is the country, the indispensable nation that makes this a safer world And in a safer world, American innovation, American hard work has always been the thing that has driven our country to greater things. I'm going to be the president who will do those big things. We're not going to be small, and I'll say this about Donald Trump.
Said that a little weird.
Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country, and it needs to be said plainly.
Governor, thank you. Senator Scott, you've said former President Trump can't win. Make your case to Republican voters.
Well, certainly. What I would say without any question is that the truth of my life destroys the lies of the radical left. We need a president and a candidate who will actually help our base solidify and attract independent voters into our party. The Great Opportunity Party is now winning back African-American voters and Hispanic voters because we are working on a foundation based on faith. Our nation is facing some deep challenges. It is the loss of faith in this nation that is part of the erosion that we're seeing every single day. It's restoring faith, restoring our Christian values that will help this nation once again become the city on the hill. When Ronald Reagan talked about the city on the hill, he was coming from Matthew 5. When President Lincoln talked about a house divided, that was Mark. Our founding documents speak to the importance of a faith foundation. You don't have to be a Christian for America to work for you, but America does not work without a faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation. I would be the president that helps us restore faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future. Without that focus, none of the issues, the policies matter. We have to get back to being a nation
if everyone
that
were
is,
just
in
morally
fact, the city on the hill, that believes in each other enough for us to fight for that future.
Senator Scott, thank you. We're going to turn now to the challenges facing the next commander-in-chief. You'll all be fielding questions first from me and the Republican Jewish Coalition, and then from Kristen and Hugh. So as we continue forward,
by the way, anybody
the Israel-Hamas war is barely a month old. Tonight, Israeli troops are fighting inside Gaza City with over 200 hostages who remain captive there, and civilian casualties mount inside Gaza.
Christie.
As President of the United States, what would you be urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do at this moment? Governor DeSantis.
I would be telling Bibi, finish the job once and for all with these butchers, Hamas. They're terrorists. They're massacring innocent people. They would wipe every Jew off the globe if they could. He cannot live with that threat right by his country. That Hamas should release every hostage and they should unconditionally surrender. I'm sick of hearing the media, I'm sick of hearing other people blame Israel just for defending itself. We will stand with Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And I can tell you, as governor, I actually did something about it. Biden's neglect has been atrocious. We had Floridians that were over there after the attack. He left them stranded. They couldn't get flights out. So I scrambled resources in Florida. I sent planes over to Israel, and I brought back over 700 people to safety. There could have been more hostages had we not acted. And I'll tell you this, I met the first plane load when they came to Florida, and one of the mothers pointed to a 6-year-old daughter, and she said, my daughter had been saying the last 2 nights, Mommy, I don't want to hear any more bombs, no more rockets. I just want to get back to Florida. So there's a difference between words and deeds. We acted and we saved lives.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, what would you do? What would you be urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do? Would you consider humanitarian pause, for example?
The first thing I said to him when it happened was I said, finish them. Finish them. And the reason is I worked on this every day when I was at the United Nations. And we have to remember that they have to, 1, eliminate Hamas, 2, support Israel with whatever they need whenever they need it, and 3, make sure we bring our hostages home. We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There would not be the Houthis without Iran. And there wouldn't be the Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq that are trying to hit our military men and women if it hadn't been for Iran. And who is funding Iran right now? China is buying oil from Iran. Russia is getting drones and missiles from Iran. And there is an unholy alliance. We need to be clear-eyed. The last thing we need to do is to tell Israel Israel what to do. The only thing we should be doing is supporting them and eliminating Hamas. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to this Islamic terrorism, and we need to make sure that we have their backs in that process.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy. Mr. Ramaswamy, any daylight between you and the candidates we just heard on this issue on what you would tell the Prime Minister?
Not in terms of what I would tell the Prime Minister, no. In fact, I would go one step further. The founding vision of Israel was based on the idea that they don't want to depend on anybody else's sympathy or direction in defending themselves. So what I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border, and then I'll tell him as President of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border. That's his responsibility. This is our responsibility. That's how we move forward. But I want to be careful to avoid making the mistakes from the neocon establishment of the past. Corrupt politicians in both parties spent trillions, killed millions, made billions for themselves in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting wars that sent thousands of our sons and daughters, people my age, to die in wars that did not advance anyone's interests, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. And Joe Biden sold off our foreign policy. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first, or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right, Mr.
In which case
Ramaswamy.
we've got two of them on stage.
Ramaswamy, thank you. Senator
Damn,
Scott, Senator, same question to you. You're the president. You're on the phone in the Oval Office with the Prime Minister. You tell him what.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
number one, I would tell Prime Minister Netanyahu, not only do you have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas off of the map, we will support you. We will be there with you. We'll stand shoulder to shoulder. There will be no daylight. But I would change the station a little bit, though, and head back home to America. I would say to President Biden, diplomacy only is a weak strategy. Appeasement leads to war. From President Obama to President Biden, Obama sent millions to Iran. Frankly, President Biden has sent billions to Iran. That is why I've said that there's blood dripping from the hands of President Obama and President Biden. I would tell President Biden with great clarity, if you want to stop the 40+ attacks on military personnel in the Middle East, you have to strike in Iran. If you want to make a difference, you cannot just continue to have strikes in Syria on warehouses. You actually have to cut off the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is Iran and not simply their proxies. In order for us to have a powerful response from America, we have to be in a position of strength. As President of the United States, my foreign policy is simple. You cannot negotiate with evil. You have to destroy it.
All right, Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, I want to get you to weigh in here.
Look, Lester, these problems are so big and serious that the first thing I would say to Prime Minister Netanyahu is pretty simple. America is here, no matter what it is you need at any time, to preserve the state of Israel. Remember that Hamas's main goal is to get rid of Israel, is to get Israel absolutely off the map. Now, there are three things I think I would say to him when he asked for advice. The first I would say is that it is absolutely your obligation to protect the territorial integrity of Israel.
Yeah, pretty sure
Secondly, to make sure you protect the security and the safety of your people. Every time something happens to compromise either one of those things, it creates greater unrest in the entire region. Second, you must go in and make sure that Hamas can never do this again. The fact is that Israel and their intelligence community failed. They failed here, and they failed the people of the state of Israel. And so we need to work closely and better together to make sure, one, that they're degraded, and two, that we know everything that's going on inside the Gaza Strip when it's going on, so that something like this can't happen to kill 1,400 individuals again. And the third thing is to keep your eye on the ball. Make sure that we continue to isolate Iran, work with the reasonable nations in the Middle East, the other Arab nations who want to partner with you, and make sure that we continue to isolate Iran so that their only friends in the world are the part of the evil foursome, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea.
Christie, thank you very much. And we're going to continue in this vein right now with a question from Matthew Brooks, the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, a partner of the Republican National Committee in this debate.
Given attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups on U.S. military bases in Syria and Iraq, attacks that have wounded approximately 24 of our U.S. servicemen, do you support the use of military force by the United States against Iran?
Governor Haley, would you please answer that?
Yes, I'd first like to say they're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
Well, we've got two of you on stage.
The second thing that I will say is I wear heels. They're not for a fashion statement. They're for ammunition. What we need to be doing for Iraq and Syria is, first of all, the idea that our men and women could be targeted and that we've allowed almost 100 hits to happen under Biden's watch is unthinkable. We need to understand this is Iran giving the green light, telling them what to do, and we shouldn't be doing the tit for tat like what Joe Biden has done. We need to go and take out their infrastructure that they are using to make those strikes with so they can never do it again. Iran responds to strength. You punch them one and you punch them hard and they will back off. But what we don't need is Biden falling all over himself to get back in the Iran deal. Him giving $6 billion to get 5 hostages home. Him telling Netanyahu now that he needs a pause or a ceasefire. We don't need him going and sitting there tiptoeing around Iran because he thinks they're going to do something. You don't respond to an enemy and a terrorist with fear. You respond with strength. When you do that, that's when the world pays attention, and that's when Iran stops.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, if I can continue with you. Just today, the U.S. launched another one of its limited airstrikes against targets in Syria, this time Iranian-linked facility. How far would you go militarily to hold Iran accountable?
Well, first, Matt, thanks for your question, and I appreciate what you've done over the last month. I know it's been very difficult for the community, and appreciate you guys rallying together in difficult times. I actually served in Iraq back in the day, and we had al-Qaeda in Iraq. You had Shia militias that were funded by Iran that were killing hundreds and hundreds of U.S. troops. And as Commander-in-Chief, I am not going to put our troops in harm's way unless you're willing to defend them with everything you have. Biden has them out there. They're sitting ducks. He's doing glancing blows. That's just inviting more attacks from the Iranians. I would say you harm a hair on the head of an American service member, and you are going to have hell to pay. We are not just going to sit there and let our service members be sitting ducks, and that's true whether it's Iran or whether it's any country on the world. We have to be strong, and we have to defend the people who defend us.
All right, thank you, Governor. And now our second and final question from Matthew Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Please watch.
Jewish students across the country are threatened and under attack. What do you say to Jewish students on college campuses who feel unsafe given the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism? And what do you say to university presidents and college presidents who have not met the moral clarity moment to forcefully condemn Hamas terrorism?
Mr. Ramaswamy, would you like to take that?
Absolutely.
Guilty of committing a
I
hate
think
crime.
the scourge of anti-Semitism across this country, including at places like my alma maters and places like Brooklyn Bridge in New York, it's sad to see, but here's what history teaches us. Anti-Semitism is a symptom of a deeper cancer in a country and a society that is lost, and we are lost. Several years ago, when I wrote my first book, Woke Inc., I was talking about they were chanting death to America, death to white people, death to Christians. Nobody was waking up back then. Now it's even bad. Now they're saying death to Israel and worse. So it is wrong, but we have to get to the root cause here. Now, I think it's really important that we do this through leadership, not censorship. Leadership means fill that void with purpose and meaning. Dilute this wokeism and anti-Semitism to irrelevance. These kids, they have no idea what the heck they're even talking about when they're siding with Hamas over Israel. They are fools. But I also want to caution here, if we go the direction of Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, with whom I respectfully disagree on this issue, pro-censorship, telling student groups to disband. Mark my words. Soon they will say if you question a vaccine and its side effects, you're a bioterrorist. Soon they will say that if you show up at a school board meeting, you're a domestic terrorist. Soon if they say that J6 prisoners should be released, you're an insurrectionist terrorist. So that's where this road ends. We don't quash this with censorship because that creates a worse underbelly. We quell it through leadership by calling it out. These university administrators have lost their way, and we need leadership at the top in the United States of America that restores our founding values and that has no place for this kind of anti-Semitic hate. That's where I stand while respecting our Constitution.
Your time is out. Senator Scott, let me get you to weigh in on what you just heard.
He was done, and he was like, oh, okay,
let me just say
time's
to
over.
every single university president in America, federal funding is a privilege, not a right. Number one. Number two, to every student who've come to our country on a visa to a college campus, your visa is a privilege, not a right. Number three, any campus that allows for anti-Semitism and hate, to allow students to encourage terrorism, mass murder, and genocide, you should lose your federal funding today, period. To all the students on visas who are encouraging Jewish genocide, I would deport you from those campuses. We have to stand strong with our Jewish Americans. At the end of the day, we should not have our Jewish students in a library being told to hide. On our streets in New York, a Jewish citizen has the right to walk on the streets of America with no fear. They have the right to go to college campuses, go to class, and not fear. We will restore that. I started working on anti-Semitism on college campuses in 2017 because even then there was a rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. We must force the people off those campuses and
Senator
frankly,
Scott, thank you. Let me turn to the Governor DeSantis here. What do you think about what he just said?
I mean, you couldn't just
I was the first presidential candidate to say, if you are here on a student visa as a foreign national, you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home. No questions asked. Second, I have friends here in Florida who their kids do not feel safe even going to university campus at all outside of the state of Florida. You have Jewish students fleeing for their lives at Cooper Union. Joe Biden should have the Department of Justice on these college campuses and holding the universities accountable for civil rights violations. When you should not have money going to these places. I already acted in Florida. We had a group, Students for Justice of Palestine. They said they are common cause with Hamas. They said, we're not just in solidarity, this is what we are. We deactivated them. We're not going to use state tax dollars to fund jihad. No way. And what is Biden doing? Not only is he not helping the Jewish students who are being persecuted, he is launching an initiative to combat so-called Islamophobia. No, it's the anti-Semitism that's spiraling out of control. That is what we have to confront. And as president, I can tell you this. We are not going to stand for this on college campuses any longer.
All right, Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Governor Christie. And considering what he just said, you led a state with a sizable Muslim population. Last month, as you know, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy was killed in Illinois by his landlord. His mother was also stabbed more than a dozen times in what has been charged as a hate crime. What do you say to Muslim Americans who are also feeling afraid for their safety right now?
Lester, I'm the only one on the stage who's actually had experience in dealing with this. I was appointed by President Bush to be the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey on September 10th, 2001. And when I took over that job after the September 11th attacks, I had to deal with a situation in our state that was explosive. We're the most ethnically diverse state in this country. And so first, we heard credible reports about Jewish students and synagogues being threatened in our state in the aftermath of 9/11. We made sure that we sent federal agents to those synagogues and we protected them, and the same thing should be being done now. At the very same time, I personally went from mosque to mosque in New Jersey.
He asked you about
and
Muslims.
met with the leaders of those mosques and
just now.
with the members of the mosques. And I said to them, law enforcement is on your side to protect you, regardless of your religion, if you are going to comply with the law. And we developed fabulous relationships with Muslim Americans all across the state of New Jersey, and we stopped any hate crimes that were going on either against Jewish Americans in New Jersey or Muslim Americans in New Jersey. It takes leadership, Lester, to know how to do this. You must work with both sides. Both sides need to know it, but let us never have a false moral equivalence between Hamas and Hezbollah and the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand for right and justice, and Hamas and Hezbollah stand for death.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, what do you say to Americans who are simply afraid right now in this current environment that we're talking about?
I think, you look at the country, and the country is all out of sorts. I think, look at what these kids are dealing with on college campuses. What makes me so angry is not only do you have the kids barricaded in the library, they've said they were going to shoot up the kosher dining hall. You've got kids' dorm rooms who are being set on fire because they have something related to Israel on their doors. No person should ever feel in danger like this. And this is what I would say about our college presidents, is if the KKK were doing this, every college president would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it exactly the same. Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected. And for everybody that's protesting on these college campuses in favor of Hamas, let me remind you something. Hamas said death to Israel and death to America. They hate and would kill you too. And the idea that they're talking about genocide for the Jewish people, that's not the values of America. That's not us. We're better than that. We don't need to celebrate terrorists. We don't need to celebrate genocide. We don't need to celebrate violence towards anybody. We need to go back and soul search in our country and remember what we are about. And we are about taking care of people, not going and making them live in fear because some other terrorist activity says they want to destroy them.
Ambassador, thank you. Kristen.
Lester, thank you. This is another question for the entire field, so you will all get a chance to respond. But Senator Scott, I'd like to start with you. The United States has given Ukraine financial and military support since the war began more than 600 days ago. President Zelensky told me on Sunday if Russia isn't stopped now, quote, the price will be higher for the United States, and Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to defend NATO countries.
You're lying.
Senator Scott, where do you stand on more funding for Ukraine?
Why are they
I certainly have been very supportive of Ukraine. I believe that ultimately we should make sure that the President of the United States states what is America's national vital interest in Ukraine. It is actually in degrading the Russian military. We've been very effective using our resources and our weaponry and the incredibly high price of Ukrainian blood to achieve that objective. Every day we get closer to the degradation of the Russian military, and that's good news. But the American people are frustrated that they do not have a president who reminds us and tells us, where's the accountability? Where are those dollars? How are those dollars being spent? We need those answers for us to continue to see the support for Ukraine. And at the same time, I would say that a package that's been offered by the president for Ukraine and Israel, that's the wrong approach. We need to focus specifically on providing Israel with the $14 billion that they need so that we show the world that we are 100% undeniably standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. And then as we turn away from that direct support for Israel, we should go to our southern border and close our southern border with the resources necessary. I believe that we have sleeper terrorist cells in America. Thousands of people have come from Yemen, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. If we are going to deal with the national security emergency at our border, we have to do it now.
Senator Scott, thank you. But just to be very clear, if you were president, if you were in the Oval Office today, would you sign off on more military funding for Ukraine, or would you discontinue it?
Bottom line is we have to first have the level of accountability that allows the American people to understand where the resources have gone. number one. Number two, after we have that responsibility taken care of and accountability, then we have an opportunity to look at the overall strategy that helps us degrade the Russian military while we use our resources and, frankly, keeping our NATO partners safe from the Russian military is absolutely essential. As you understand, Article 5 would require to support and to defend NATO, our troops on the ground. The fastest way for us to eliminate that possibility is for us to destroy, to the extent possible, the Russian military. By doing so, we actually achieve the objective of keeping our military home. And that's good news.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties. It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic. More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk. These are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time
Ramaswamy,
condemn.
thank you. That's time.
At least to
Mr.
condemn.
Ramaswamy,
no, come on, bitch. Let him finish.
Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. We asked the questions. Ambassador Haley, what is your take on more funding for Ukraine?
Retorts.
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see
The fact of the matter is she doesn't answer
So this
the
is what I will tell you.
We're driving Russia into China's hands because of these foolish policies.
You had your time to talk. The ambassador has the floor. Ambassador,
Thank you. The first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American country that is fighting for its survival and its democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over. But let's also remember this.
First asked for it.
The war would be over if we stopped at fucking funding it.
And left them with a ton of weapons and money. It's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine, don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. After 9/11, we needed a lot of friends. Now is the time to get
Ukraine do for us that we can't do for ourselves?
This unholy alliance between Russia, Ukraine, and China is real. There is a reason the Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China's coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins. We have to see the combination of the three.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor Christie, what is your take? And how long should Americans be expected to help fund the war in Ukraine?
Kirsten, let's remember the last time that we turned our back on a shooting war in Europe. It bought us just a couple of years. And then 500,000 Americans were killed in Europe to defeat Hitler. This is not a choice. This is the price we pay for being the leaders of the free world. And the fact is, this alliance is not just with Russia and China. Governor Haley knows this. Iran is in the middle of this as well, and so is North Korea. And they are all working to support Russia right now. And the reason they're doing it is because dictators work together. People who believe in democracy work together. We must stand with all of those that are standing up for democracy and freedom in this world. And by the way, let's remind everybody of this.
Do not work
in 1992, this country made a promise to Ukraine.
By definition.
We said if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia and they invade you, we will protect you. An American promise that's 31 years old is no different than an American promise that's made tonight on this stage. We need to stand by it. And those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And
I'd like to respond.
And the absolute giving in to dictators, which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
Governor Christie, thank you. Governor DeSantis, I'd like you to weigh in on this idea. Are you concerned that this could become a wider war if Putin is not stopped now?
Well, any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our southern border. If you look at the threats that we face, terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion.
40 minutes.
60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries. That is a totally ridiculous use of American tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try to do, and the media repeat that. When you look at it, what most of the money is money to process more illegal aliens into this country. How is that solving the problem? That's making the problem worse. And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance. That is the top threat that we face. We need to bring this war to an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about the top threat that this country faces, which is the Chinese Communist Party.
So if I may respond to the Ukraine question.
In fact, we are going to go from the hot wars in Ukraine and Gaza and Israel to what many people are calling the new Cold War with China. And I remind the audience that it's important for our visitors at home to be able to hear you, and especially for the people in Beijing to hear you. Many Republicans believe that the Chinese Communist Party and General Secretary Xi is an existential threat to the United States. The flashpoint is Taiwan. For decades and decades, the American military, but primarily the United States Navy, has deterred an attack from China to the island state of Taiwan. But Ronald Reagan's Navy of 600 ships is gone. Now, the question to you is, and I'll start with you, Ambassador Haley, because you were in President Trump's cabinet. His goal was a 355-ship Navy. That's what he pushed for. He got to 300. It's now at 291. Is that big enough to deter and, if necessary, defeat an invasion of Taiwan?
Yeah. China has the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. China has built up their military. It's not just land, air, and sea. They're doing cyber. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing space. America needs to modernize our military. We need to do everything we can. The first thing is you go and you make sure you have the backs of Ukraine. That's why the Taiwanese want us to support Ukraine, because they know that sends the biggest message to China. The second thing is we go to China and we start being tough on them. No more sales of our American soil to China, and let's take back what they've already stolen. Then you go and you to the universities. No more having millions of dollars go to our universities. Then we will go and end all formal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans from fentanyl, something Ron has yet to say that he's going to do. And then we modernize our military. When we strengthen our military, when we modernize it with the focus of cyber, artificial intelligence, and space, when we make sure that we have the backs of our friends, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Ukraine, and we should be arming Taiwan. Make sure they have the equipment they need. Make sure they have the training they need now. There's nothing China fears more than knowing that America will have Taiwan's back. Let's make sure that we show it by making sure they have the equipment they need.
Governor DeSantis, my question is specifically about the Navy. It's at 291. It's going to go down perhaps as low as 280. Is it enough? And what would you build if you were going to build more?
Not enough. We have to have the ability to back up a strategy of denial of President Xi's ambitions. And If China is able to be the world's leading superpower, that will affect you and your family in ways that are going to be very bad. They will export authoritarianism all around the world as the cost of doing business. They will impose things like social credit scores and internet monitoring. So this is, to this generation, what the Soviet Union was to the post-World War II generation. I've already released a plan. We're going to get to 355 ships at the end of the first term, 385 ships at the end of the second term, but we're going to have a path to 600 ships over the next 20 years. I think the future of freedom is going to be determined in the Indo-Pacific. We have a strategy not just military, but decoupling from the economy and fighting them here at home with their cultural. You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their #1 way to do economic development. In Florida, I banned China from buying land in this state, and we kicked out on our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. We've recognized the threat, and we've acted swiftly and decisively.
Senator Scott, you've been in the Congress since 2011. Defense spending has fallen over that entire period of time. Where are we going to get the money, and what would you build, and what kind of ships to deter China from attacking Taiwan?
Well, two major problems with the question. Number one, we do not have currently a defense industrial bank to allow us to have the kind of production that we need in order to keep America safe. Frankly, if we are not prepared to fight and engage in 3 continents at the same time,
there we go.
Think about where we are today. In the Middle East,
it seems to be
the midst of trying to back our strongest ally. In Eastern Europe, we've seen our resources and our weaponry help degrade the Russian military. The Indo-Pacific, we have real challenges. The long-term threat is China. The immediate threat is our southern border. In order for us to have the military to fight 3 different continents at the exact same time, we are going to have to invest heavily in our military, but we're also going to have to invest heavily in an industrial base so that we can hit our objectives from a military perspective, not only with our ships, but also with our planes. We are so old as a military that in order for us to recalibrate, we're going to have to invest. One of the things I do in my Made in America strategy is we create more than 4 million new jobs by having high-tech manufacturing come back to America, decoupling from China, so that we focus our attention on creating that industrial revolution that will be necessary for us to achieve the goal of having a military that is ready to be lethal and come home safe.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Ramaswamy, I'm looking for specifics.
I just want to tell him.
What would you build? Where would you build it? When would they be in the water? How big would the fleet get?
First answer is end the toxic divest to invest program. For people who don't know about that, we're decommissioning ships in the South China Sea. The foundation of war is economics. Rebuild our defense industrial base at home. But here's the dirty little secret. Our actual defense industrial base depends on China for the supply chain, for the F-35 jets, for the ships that we're building. Think about this. Why are we stockpiling that if it isn't to actually be strong against our enemy, China? We depend on them for that, just like we depend on them for pharmaceuticals, just like we depend on them for semiconductors.
You would know.
So here's why we can't get tough with China. It's because we depend on them for our modern way of life, and we have to declare economic independence from our enemy. That's the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, would have signed. Today, if he were alive, that's the Declaration of Independence that I will sign as the next president. I do have to recognize that Ron DeSantis was correct about acknowledging Nikki Haley's tough talk when she was ambassador to the UN, calling China our great friend, bringing the CCP to South Carolina. What he left out, though, Ron, to be honest about it, there was a lobbying-based exemption in that bill that allowed Chinese nationals to buy land within a 20-mile radius of a military base lobbied for by one of your donors. So I think we have to call a spade a spade. We need politicians who are independent of the forces that increase our dependence on China. My message to Xi Jinping is this. You are done buying land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until you play by the same set of rules.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
you're kicked out of the WTO, and you actually have to have accountability for the COVID-19 pandemic financially, which unleashed hell on the world.
Sir.
We have to hold them accountable.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll give you one, too.
I think that we need to increase our naval capacity by at least 20% over the course of the next several years.
So far.
be able to meet our AUKUS agreement standards. Right now, we are at risk of not even being able to meet our AUKUS standards with Australia and the UK. So what we need to do is have a plan that reverses the trajectory of the divest to invest program
Hugh, I'd like to
by
respond.
20% over the next 3 years.
Governor Christie?
You know, my first observation, Hugh, is that nobody answers your question. And my second observation is these three in the middle think they're the enemy. I know China is the enemy, and that's what we should be focused on. So let's be really clear. The nuclear submarines in this United States Navy is the greatest deterrent to Chinese aggression, and that is the first place I would go to increase American naval power. Our nuclear submarines are able to move stealthily, quietly, and effectively, and if we are going to deter China from invading Taiwan, the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that they don't know whether how many nuclear submarines from the United States of America are in the South China Sea and in that area and ready to strike on them if they decide to move on Taiwan. And so we, as our first priority, need to go directly to our nuclear sub-program, Hugh, and we need to increase it drastically. That would be priority number one. Ships would come next, but to me, the ships are secondary choice here. The submarines are the single most important thing that we could be using to deter China. But the other thing we could do to deter China is to let them know that the blood money they're spending for Russia in Ukraine right now will not be effective. That we send Putin home with his tail between his legs and make them understand that the same fate waits for them if they decide to move towards Taiwan with a more aggressive nuclear sub-program. We'll be able to make that threat real.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to take a brief pause now, and we'll be back to the Republican presidential
He eats 3 every day.
Please stay tuned.
Are we?
Oh, now we're a commercial. Okay, holy shit. There's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, okay. Let me mute this.
Oh, I paused it. I didn't mute it.
How'd you pause it?
I hit the desktop audio button.
No, I don't think it paused. I think it
ended?
No.
Oh, is it pausing the stream because it's not showing the commercials?
I mean, that would be awesome.
That would kind of make sense.
I mean, we're still connected, right? Okay, people. Well, we're not aware of that.
We don't know what they're doing. But so first of all, I looked up Nikki Haley's net worth is $2 million. So
actually, hold on. Press that again. What'd you press?
This one.
We'll see if it changes or anything. Nothing?
Apparently not.
Okay, that was weird.
I'm gonna come.
All right, you can go ahead and talk.
So the only thing I get it, it works for rhetoric and all that, but all this talk of, kicking people out because they say things, and it's like, not letting anybody in China buy land, or, that all sounds great, but it's just a slippery slope. Because while I agree with the sentiment, whenever I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't like the word ban, and I don't like censorship in that way, because now there's a line here. So if you're a student, you're allowed to be stupid. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So you can say, you can go to, as long as it remains peaceful, you're free to protest, even though you're dead fucking wrong. You're free to protest and say what you want. But when it turns violent, that's
Consumer
super
Cellular,
weird.
we offer amazing 5G coverage, backed up by incredible.
Oh, so it just froze. Okay. No, you did.
No, I mean OBS. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
Cool. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. But holy shit, Vivek.
He's killing it.
Vivek is...
He truly is killing it. And honestly, if he would have been around, before now, I had no idea who he was before the election. But, I mean, if he'd been around a lot longer...
Did it fucking freeze again?
Why would it be freezing?
I don't know. Boo. Apparently, it's just broke.
Weird.
Super weird.
It's like, I'd just like to be able to watch it live if it happens, That'd be cool.
That'd be pretty sweet.
That'd be pretty sweet, yeah. So this so far has been Vivek owning everybody except DeSantis.
DeSantis has been pretty much saying everything DeSantis. Now, aside from his opening statement, I like what I'm hearing. The opening statement was obviously rehearsed, and
Right.
that's DeSantis's that's DeSantis's biggest weakness is he's no Donald Trump.
No,
when it comes to that. But here's the thing, I understand DeSantis because I'm that guy. I'm the guy who thinks that it's good enough to know the information and be able to present it. But unfortunately, the fact is most people are
And welcome back to tonight's NBC News Republican presidential debate. Once again, here's Hugh Hewitt.
Thank you, Lester. We're going to stay on China, and we're going to talk specifically about TikTok.
And we're back from commercials.
Congressman Mike Gallagher, who is chairman of the House Bipartisan Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, published a long essay on TikTok following the flooding of pro-Hamas propaganda onto TikTok accounts across the United States.
Okay, it's not
Chairman
just
Gallagher
that, though.
called it shocking. He called the app predatory, controlled by America's preeminent adversary, one used to push propaganda and divide America. It's spyware, he said, a means of surveillance. Governor Christie, do you agree with Chairman Gallagher? And if so, would you ban or force the sale of TikTok?
I agree 100% with Chairman Gallagher, and let me say this.
No.
TikTok is not only spyware, it is polluting the minds of American young people all throughout this country, and they're doing it intentionally. And when you saw what happened in the last few weeks with all of this anti-Semitic, horrible stuff that their algorithms were pushing out at a gargantuan rate, this is China trying to further divide the United States of America. And this is one of the big failings among many of the Trump administration. He talked tough about TikTok. I heard him do it many times. But when it came down to it, he did not ban them when he could have and should have. And now since then, we've had an additional nearly 6 years of this type of poison be put out throughout the United States, even putting aside the spying, which we know is going on, and the theft of American personal data and information. So in my first week as president, we would ban TikTok. They want to go ahead and sell it?
You can't.
Let them go ahead and sell it. But I'll tell you another reason we would do it. Facebook's not in China. X is not in China. They're not permitting a free flow of information to the Chinese people from our social media companies, yet we just open the door and let them do what they're doing.
No,
TikTok
Twitter
should be
was
banned because they
basically
are poisoning
a left arm of
American
the
minds, and
government
I would
for a
do it
while,
week
so-
one.
Thank you, Governor.
Nothing-
We'll go to Governor
nothing-
DeSantis.
nothing
Would you
he
ban
just
or
said is
force the
correct.
sale
No.
of TikTok, regardless
I don't
of
like
whether or not
TikTok,
China
but I
allowed
don't-
American
it's
apps
whatever.
to operate in China?
Yes, I think that China's the top threat we face. They've been very effective at infiltrating different parts of our society. So my policy on China and the Chinese Communist Party is very simple. We win, they lose. And in order to do that, it's not just military, it's economic, and it's cultural. And as the dad of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old, I'm concerned about the data that they're getting from our young people and what they're doing to pollute the minds of our young people. These kids get these devices and they have a mind of their own. And I know a lot of parents are looking, it's hard to even keep it out. China's obviously the most
really.
extreme, but this is happening with other things. So we are going to do that, and we are going to make sure to protect the American people. It's a full spectrum approach to be able to fend China off. Yes, military deterrence. Yes, economic decoupling, but also their role in our culture. If we don't, if we ignore that, we're not going to be able to win the fight.
I changed my
Thank you,
tune on
Ambassador
TikTok
Haley,
after watching
speak
those
to the
hearings.
parents out there. There are probably TikTok apps on half the phones in this auditorium.
No, I'm going to speak to the fact that 2 people hit me and you didn't let me respond. So let's first talk about the fact that they want to talk about the Chinese land from 10 years ago. Yes, I brought a fiberglass company 10 years ago to South Carolina. But Ron, you are the chair of your economic development agency that as of last week said Florida is the ideal place for Chinese businesses. Not only that, you have a company that is manufacturer of Chinese military planes.
As long as they
you
don't
have
own
it.
the
They are
land?
expanding 2
Sure.
training sites at 2 of your airports now. One which is 12 miles away from a naval base. Then you have another company that's expanding, and they were just invaded by the Department of Homeland Security. So mine was 10 years ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6
I
months
didn't
ago.
give them anything.
What's your story?
And I abolished that agency that she's talking about.
No,
Enterprise Florida, we abolished it, and of course we banned China from buying
the
land.
website
Not
last
exactly
week.
a
Go
great
check.
recruiting pitch if you're banning them from purchasing land
scrubbed
at
the
all. So
website
we stood
last
up
week.
and
Thank
we've
you,
done the
Ambassador
right thing
Haley.
in Florida.
Mr. Ramaswamy, we've talked about this.
Yeah, she's
you
done.
campaign on TikTok. How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
You don't.
Well, I want to laugh at why Nikki Haley didn't answer your question, which is about looking at families in the eye. In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my daughter
Yeah,
out of
no.
your voice.
That was rude there,
Yeah,
Vivek.
no, that's,
You don't talk about kids there, buddy.
yep, nope, line crossed. I don't know how young her daughter is. I
Here's the
assume she's
truth.
young.
You're
The
just
easy
scum.
answer is actually
She's
to
less
say
than
that we're just
18,
going to ban
problem.
one app.
Over 18,
we got to
fair
go
game.
further.
Yeah.
We have to ban any
I don't live
U.S.
by that or
company
anything.
actually transferring U.S.
Yeah, that
data
was
to the
low.
Chinese. Here's a story most people don't know. Airbnb hands over U.S.
Airbnb.
user data to the CCP.
Yeah,
now, that's a U.S.-owned company. So this is the problem when you have Republicans that temporarily go the way the winds blow, and now it's popular to talk tough on China. When she was UN ambassador, called them literally, her words, not mine, our great friend. You can't be fair weather fans of the right policy. Get to the root cause. Even U.S. companies in Silicon Valley are regularly doing it. Cut the virtue signaling. The fact of the matter is Democrats are on TikTok today. The only person, one of the few people who is putting up content the way the actual algorithms work, speaking for pro-Israel views or others, is
Ambassador
me.
Oh, never mind. Her daughter's
Republicans
25.
will join
She's fair
it.
game.
But stop U.S. companies from turning over data to Chinese companies. That's the real
Moderators
answer,
like
not the virtue
Kristen
signal.
don't get to respond to personal attacks, but you do.
Damn, she's got a
Thank you very much.
25-year-old
You know, when he
daughter?
talks about me praising China, he doesn't know the fact that the reason China was
like her when
praised
she's
was
a good-looking
because
old woman.
I negotiated with China and Russia the largest set of sanctions against North Korea in a generation.
Y'all motherfuckers
We are
gonna
the
make me vote
that
for
is
Vivek.
literally the reason North Korea stopped testing ballistic missiles. So I
They didn't
said China
stop.
did good on their part. That was a
You said they were
negotiation
our
you
great
could
friend
never
is
do.
what you said, Nikki. Those are your words, not mine. And so just own up to it.
You would never
You can
have been
change
able
your
to
mind.
get
That's
that
allowed.
negotiation
But don't
done.
lie to the people about
I
what
have
you've said or
fought
what you've done in
against
South
China
Carolina.
my
You have brought
entire
them to South
career at
Carolina.
the
Ron is
United
right.
All right, guys,
Nations.
let's
Every
not talk
day
over
I
each
fought
other.
China, and
More.
I did it
Look at the
by
actual
making sure
hard
no
facts.
one
You
could
brought
get
them to this
any
country.
agency heads in UN. I did it by making sure that we called them out on human rights. I did it by making sure that we held them accountable on everything that they did.
Yeah, those
That's
Uyghur
the reason
camps
we got
still
out of
exist,
Human
by the
Rights
way.
Council. That's the reason we called them out. And there's not been a day I haven't
Nikki,
stopped
Senator
getting
Scott,
through.
it
Dude,
is
she's
your
like,
turn.
thank you.
Mr.
No
Ramaswamy.
Shut up.
afterwards.
Everybody else is hanging on
It's
to the
like
rules here,
dad
Mr.
just slapped
Ramaswamy.
mom at the
Senator
dinner
Scott.
table.
Thank you. We should.
What?
It's like dad just
Appreciate y'all
slapped mom at the
clapping for me
dinner
already.
table.
This
Oh.
is wonderful. Love this.
I had to hear that again. I was like, I don't think he said
What we
that.
should do is ban TikTok,
No.
period. Now, we saw under former President Trump, he tried to ban TikTok.
It's not gonna do
twice,
anything.
But was struck
Well, no,
down
it's-
by our federal courts. If you cannot ban TikTok, you should eliminate the Chinese presence on the app, period. We also should provide, in my parents' Bill of Rights, we give parents the opportunity to give their kids permission under 14 to be on those apps. I think it's incredibly important for us as
you
Americans
dumb
to take
fuck.
back
They've been
control
doing that
of the
since MySpace
information,
days, guys.
especially of our kids. Where does it go? We should know that. One of the ways that we get to know that is by having a parental consent. But if we can eliminate TikTok, that is a first step. But it's not just TikTok. China continues to spy on our kids, but they're also buying our farmlands. We talked about that several times there. We have to make sure that we use the tools that are in our toolkit to stop China from buying farmland near our bases. The third thing we have to do is make sure that they stop stealing our intellectual property. They're literally stealing our IP to compete against us. My administration, we stop that day one, and we start making sure that we create six-figure income for jobs made in America through my strategy.
Kristen.
What job?
Thank you so much. We're now
The
going to talk
CEO
about
of
Venezuela, where
fucking
millions
TikTok.
have fled political and
Yeah,
economic
we
literally
turmoil.
walked you
Many
through
Venezuelan
how to
immigrants are
link
settling
your
right
account
here
and
in Florida.
see everything
Former
that your
President
kid
Trump and
sees.
President
It's
Biden
not
have
complicated.
taken different approaches
There's
to Nicolas
videos on
Maduro's
TikTok
regime
that show
with
you how to
little
do it.
result.
On top of that,
Former
the
President President Trump put economic pressure on Venezuela and backed one of Maduro's rivals. President Biden temporarily eased sanctions to encourage electoral reforms. Governor DeSantis, do you see the political
they're talking about pro-Hamas. I'm not meaning to talk over them, but like, there's plenty of pro-Israel too. I'm seeing it all, and I'm liking the pro-Israel, and I'm ignoring the Hamas.
Venezuela for oil, like Biden has had to go beg. I'm going to unleash all of America's energy potential on day one.
Please.
Taking all the Biden regulations, the Green New Deal, ripping it up and throwing it in the trash can where it belongs. We're going to lower your gas prices.
You're touching my naughty buttons.
Throw it in the recycling, sir. We only have one planet.
We're also going to be more energy independent and secure. We'll choose Midland over Moscow. We'll choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we'll choose Bakken over Beijing.
You've already said that.
That is good for America's national security. Biden's Green New Deal, that's good for Venezuela, it's good for Russia, it's good for Iran, and it's good for China. So I would turn the screws on the Venezuelan regime. I think it's a corrupt, dictatorial regime, and we should never go hat in hand begging for oil from them.
Just to be clear, would you reimpose the sanctions?
Yes, absolutely.
Ambassador Haley, what would your approach be?
You know, I stood on the Simon Bolivar Bridge and watched thousands of Venezuelans cross for hours in the hot sun holding their babies to get the one meal they might get that day going from Venezuela to Colombia. They were fleeing socialism and begging for freedom. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to sanction Maduro. We shouldn't be getting dirty oil, and Biden just gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary priority status, which is just going to have more of them come. But on the energy side, it cracks me up that Ron continues to do this. He has opposed fracking. He's opposed drilling. Last time he said it wasn't true, and everybody found out that it was true.
I don't need to hear what she
says
Florida
anymore
voters
even
honestly,
voted on it.
she's
He
done.
was
She
praised
ruined
by
her
the
shit
Sierra
at the
Club,
beginning.
and you're trying to make up for it and act like you weren't a liberal when it comes to the environment. You were. You always have been. Just own it if that's the case. But don't keep saying you're something that you're not.
Let me respond to that. Our whole energy plan, you can't get the shale without fracking. We are absolutely going to frack, but I disagree with Nikki Haley. I don't think it's a good idea to drill in the Florida Everglades, and I know most Floridians agree with me.
You banned fracking. Thank you.
In the Everglades, you dumb bitch.
All right, thank you. Let's turn to one of the biggest issues for
I don't want
voters.
them
The Everglades are gorgeous. Why would you want to do that?
Not only that, there are species that only live in the Florida
recently
Everglades.
told NBC News, how am I going to make sure my pantry's stocked without breaking the bank? You've all said the best way to deal with rising prices is to cut government spending. But that would take time to play out, and Americans are struggling right now. Senator Scott, I'll start with you. What would you do the moment you take office to help Americans manage the cost of living? So we're talking about short term here.
I can handle 6 months to a year.
My mother was a single mother who raised me and my brother
just get the
in
prices
a
down
very
within that,
challenging
and we're cool.
economic situation. The first thing I can tell you is that when your gas prices are 40% higher right now than they were just a little over 2 years ago, that's not a problem for my mama. That was a crisis. The first thing I would do as President of the United States is I would sign the XL Keystone Pipeline and start seeing resources flow. Second thing I would do is make sure that there's certainty and predictability so that those folks who have the leases in our country would have the certainty and predictability to go ahead and become energy independent. We should focus not just on being energy independent, we should focus on being energy dominant. America is the home to more energy resources than any other country on the planet. We can reduce the price of energy. We can reduce the price of food and the price of electricity if we focus on my build here, don't borrow from China
you
plan
lower gas prices
that is embedded the Made in America strategy.
Everything gets cheaper.
Everything. New
jobs
in 3 different areas. One is innovation.
How much it costs
to make is the high-tech manufacturing. And the third is the energy economy. We have an opportunity as Americans to actually export the surplus energy that we create in our nation and disconnect from China and from murderous dictators and tyrants around the world.
Your time is up, but let me just follow up. The idea of pumping gas, of turning on pipelines, that doesn't make gas cheaper.
Actually, yes, it does.
You become
because
president.
oil is a speculative
commodity. What can you do
commodity
specifically to help people feel better about their situation
so
or
you're
be
wrong,
better
sir.
with their situation?
Well, actually, it does, to be honest with you.
I know, but I mean, I'm just calling it out. You're wrong.
It works on the ability to anticipate excess supply versus the demand. When that happens, confidence drives our prices down because we know there's going to be a greater surplus.
Oh
And
my
you allow
gosh,
for
no
those
way.
who have leases to
It's like
actually
you took
start
an
drilling to start
economics class
using those
sometime.
leases for more energy excavation. You put our economy
Lester,
in the
dude,
strongest
you
position. And
suck as a
result of
moderator
that,
because if you
prices
don't
are
know
going
this simple
down.
fact,
that is the kind
you
of
suck
economy
so
that,
much.
as president of the United States,
Yeah, dude,
I
oil
would
is a
lead
more than a
this
shark.
nation
Oil
to
is a
making sure that we
speculative
first
commodity.
use the
Same
resources
as
in our
most
own
food.
country
They're
and not
futures.
going outside of our
You
country
base the
in
price
order
on
to
corn
achieve
now, what you
our
think the yield
objective.
is gonna
You know,
be
Proverbs
next year.
22:7 reminds us that the borrower is slave to the lender. We have become an indentured servant too often to countries like China.
turning into Dave
By having
Ramsey.
an energy economy, we start allowing this nation to once again return.
Don't get me
Senator,
wrong,
thank
I
you.
love
Let me
Dave Ramsey.
ask the same
But he
question
says
to
that all the
Governor
time.
DeSantis. Can you give us some, you ticked off a number of things a moment ago, but some specific examples of ways
ticked
that
me off,
would
Lester.
put people on a better economic footing right away?
So I started off working minimum wage jobs. I did $6 an hour as an electrician's assistant. I worked all kinds of things to
Well,
be
that
able to
would've
get through
been like
school. And I
30
did
some
that
odd years
because
ago.
I believed in America. If you work hard and get the most out of your God-given ability, you can get ahead. And what's happening now, many of you are working hard and you're falling further and further behind. I've met people in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all across the country who've talked about all the burdens that they're facing with the rising prices. And I've heard from multiple people the same story. When they go grocery shopping, what they now do is they figure out what they have to take out
here's
of
the
the
crazy
cart
thing. We
once
have
it's
the
ringing
answer.
up, because it rings up so much
We
faster
know
and so
what
much higher at the
caused
cash
the
register
Roaring
that they
20s,
can't
and we
afford
know what
the
caused the
full
Great
cart of
Depression.
groceries anymore.
Do what
We have
caused
to
the
restore
Roaring
the
20s,
American dream in
and
this
don't
country.
do what
can
caused
you
the
do
Great
on day one?
Depression.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the executive orders, the regulations, everything involving Bidenomics. I'm going to rip it up, and I'm going to throw it in the trash can on day one where
Sounds
it
like-
belongs. That is going to give the economy breathing room, and I'm
we
also
gotta
going to
protect the
rein in the
Everglades.
Federal Reserve.
I mean,
they have helped
this dude's
create,
right.
with their reckless monetary policy, what we have faced since the COVID-19 pandemic. They botched it. Congress botched it. Both parties are to blame. Fed should focus on stable prices. They are not an economic central planner for the American people.
Governor, thank you. Mr.
You know what?
Ramaswamy,
It
weigh in
always
on
makes
this.
me wonder, what if the
ways
U.S.
that you can
hadn't
improve
lost
people's
its
financial
collective
condition in the
mind
short
during
term?
COVID?
Right, and as a CEO, the economic question is
we
core
could
to
have
my
gotten
vision
so much done.
policy
Dude, we
prescription
could-
for
we
this
would be
country.
so ahead
Increase the
economically.
supply of everything. It's the law of supplies and demand. Increase the supply of
Trump
energy.
would've
That
stayed
brings
in
down the
office.
cost of energy, grows the economy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Increase the supply of labor in this country. Stop using our taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home instead of to go to work. Increase the supply of housing. People don't talk about this one in the Republican Party. The land use restrictions are constricting the supply of housing.
happened
That's
in
making
Canada.
housing more
Worse.
expensive for ordinary Americans across this country. So that's the true answer. And I think it takes a CEO in the
That's
White House
mostly
who actually
building materials,
understands
though,
this
Vivek.
to get this done. Because Americans at home, they know the
interest
Bidenomics
rates
is a
now.
lie. Prices are going up. Interest rates and mortgages to buy your home are going up. But wages have remained flat. That's the hard diagnosis for our economy. And this is about more than just our economy. I say this as a member of my generation. I'm 38 years old. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. The reason my generation has lost our sense of national pride in part is because people in my generation feel like the American dream isn't available to them. And part of the reason why is we've burdened them with four-year college degrees that did not serve their head start on the American dream. People will be more proud of a country
Well, they also
if we're
chose
all
something they
making
shouldn't
more
have.
money in that country. This is how we revive national pride and our identity, and it will take a CEO in the White House with zero-based budgeting, by the way, to take on the
Mr.
federal
Ramaswamy,
debt to
thank
get
you.
this
Let me
job
turn
done.
to Governor Christie on that.
Well, look, Lester, part of the entire premise
He
of the
must work
question, and I
out.
agree with Tim on this, is absolutely energy is the key to this because it drives every one of the other prices. You know, now food gets to your grocery store, it gets trucked. And those truckers have to pay for fuel and for the higher fuel prices. And
Y'all
when
don't
you
know what
go
I'm
ahead
talking about.
And you tell people, we are going to unleash every bit of American energy, every bit of its potential. What happens in the futures markets? The prices go down because those people who are believing that the Biden program will continue are the ones who are bidding this up. And let me tell you the other place that's bidding it up, in the Middle East. And so if you don't believe that making sure that Israel and that Israel situation that's going on right now isn't resolved and resolved quickly as President of the United States and bring stability back, that will also not permit countries like Saudi Arabia and others to be able to jack their prices as well in what they say is in response to a crisis, when it's really what it's in response to is putting more money in their pockets. When they have an American president who knows that Israel must be defended not with humanitarian pauses and not with suggestions for ceasefire, but with letting them know we will supply them with everything they need, that will also bring stability to the market. Energy is the key to bringing this down. It's what every American family needs when they turn on their lights, fill up their car, and go to the grocery store. And we need to do that first and foremost. That's the short-term answer.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me come at this from a slightly different direction. Americans in rural communities are being especially squeezed by inflation right now. An Iowa State University study found that last year inflation cost rural households about an extra $5,000. How would you specifically help rural Americans who are suffering right now, Ambassador?
Well, I'm a product of rural America. I grew up in rural South Carolina.
Doesn't matter.
And I can tell you what we're seeing now in America is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We have to go and start beefing up the middle class. And the first thing I would do is I will eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country.
That's going to change a whole whopping 5 cents.
But we have to stop the spending binge that's happening by Republicans and Democrats in Congress.
That's the biggest
I will make sure, one, we claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that exist, one out of every $7. We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't go back to pre-COVID levels. That will cut trillions and allow us to be safe. We also need to be not energy independent, energy dominant. We are blessed with resources. Let's do it. But the reason no one should give you a number, Hugh, on the amount of ships in the Navy is because in a few years, our interest expense is going to be more than our defense budget. So no one can give you that number realistically without first tackling what's happening with the financial situation. It would be a false number to give you that. We have got to understand this is a crisis. It is a national security concern. If we don't deal with what's going to happen with that interest expense in a few years, we're going to look like Japan. And we can't let that happen. The strong dollar matters.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Christie.
Americans could see
all opposing views.
Americans could see their Social Security benefits drastically cut.
I know, but apparently we can't fucking do that. Like, because that shit's corrupt.
Former President Trump has said, quote, under no circumstances should Republicans cut entitlements. Governor Christie, first to you. You have proposed raising the retirement age for younger Americans. What would that age be specifically, and would you consider making any other reforms to Social Security?
Sure, and we have to deal with this problem. Now, look, if we raise the retirement age a few years for folks that are in their 30s and 40s, I have a son who's in the audience tonight who's 30 years old. If he can't adjust to a few-year increase in Social Security retirement age over the next 40 years, I got bigger problems with him than his Social Security payments. And the fact is, we need to be realistic about this. There are only 3 things that go into determining whether Social Security can be solvent or not. Retirement age, eligibility for the program in general, and taxes. That's it. We are already overtaxed in this country, and we should not raise those taxes. But on eligibility also, I don't know if out there tonight, and if you're watching Warren, I don't know if Warren Buffett is collecting Social Security, but if he is, shame on you. You shouldn't be taking the money. There are a lot of programs in this country that we all pay for.
That's how it's written.
That's how it works there, you fucking Krispy Kreme bitch.
Food stamps is one of them. I've never, fortunately in my life, ever had me or my family on food stamps.
Don't you mess with Warren Buffett. He's a sweet old man.
So that no one in this country goes to bed hungry at night if they have availability to that program. But I don't get a direct benefit.
No.
The fact is, on Social Security, remember why it was established. It was established as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in this country in poverty. That's what we got to get back to. Rich people should not be collecting Social Security.
Governor, can you give me a specific age? 69, 70? What would the age be?
No, look, that's
you know what I call these fun coupons,
Kirsten. And hell, I'm not going to start negotiating until I get there.
All right, Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in on this because you said in June that you would be open to raising the retirement age. Have Have you determined what that age would be specifically, and what other reforms are you looking at?
So first of all, any candidate that tells you that they're not going to take on entitlements is not being serious. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. Right now, you have Ron and Trump joining Biden and Pelosi saying they're not going to change or do any sort of entitlement reform. What we need to do is keep our promises. Those that have been promised should keep it. But for like my kids in their 20s, you go and you say we're going to change the rules. You change the retirement age for them. Instead of cost of living increases, we should go to increases based on inflation. We should limit benefits on the wealthy. Bernie Marcus can tell you he hates getting that check. Limit the benefits on the wealthy, and then expand Medicare Advantage plans. Seniors love that, and let's make sure we do that so that they can have more competition. That's how we'll deal with entitlement reform, and that's how we'll start to pay down this debt.
And can you give me a specific age? Have you determined the age?
Again, you have to work with Chris. What I can tell you is it's going to be those in their 20s just coming into the system, and it should reflect more of life expectancy. It doesn't do that now.
All right, Mr. Ramaswamy, have you determined if you would touch entitlements
well, life
and Social Security?
expectancy in the United States is like 57.
So this is really important right now. We're
yeah,
working
it's not
on the
right.
last window I believe we will have to actually fix this problem while
like
still leaving Social Security and Medicare benefits for current seniors
80.
intact. I'll tell you how. The other candidates assume, like Nikki, that it can't be done. And on her math, she's right about it. But her math assumes $7 trillion of our $33 trillion national debt going to fight wars like in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Minus that, our national debt would be $26 trillion right now. Then you go to zero-based budgeting, which I've proposed as a CEO. It's how I've run businesses. It's how many CEOs run businesses. Don't use last year's budget as the baseline. Start with 0 as the baseline and then ask what's actually necessary. 75% headcount reduction. Yes, that is severe. In the number of federal employees in the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy. Shut down redundant agencies that should not exist. Deliver economic growth as a positive tailwind. I think we can get to 3, 4, maybe even 5% GDP growth if we really take the regulatory shackles off of our economy. And against that backdrop, I believe this is our last best window to be able to take care of our national debt problem through those severe measures, including sacrificing the foreign wars that many bloodthirsty members of both parties have a hunger for. That's the one secret for how we're going to be able to do this, and that requires discipline. So we can't have the first conversation we're having sending foreign aid willy-nilly to countries whose national debt per capita is less than ours.
I know what Trump can do.
But if we do this correctly, I think this is our last window, and it'll take a CEO from the next generation to do it.
Thank you very much. Senator Scott, weigh in here. What are you looking at to keep Social Security sustainable?
Yeah. The bottom line is a simple one. We have to grow our economy and cut our spending. Let me just say to my mama and to every other mama or grandfather receiving Social Security, as President of the United States,
my mama says alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth and no toothbrush.
The fact is that we're spending today about $1.1 trillion on Social Security, about $750 billion on Medicare, about $300 billion on Medicaid, about $400 billion on veterans benefits, $1.7 trillion on annual appropriations. If we're going to actually tame this tiger, the way you do it is not by picking on seniors who have paid into a program that deserve their money coming back out to them. The way you deal with it is, number one, you have to grow your economy. My plan, Made in America, creates 10 million new jobs, grows our economy at 5%. By doing so, you add trillions of dollars of economic activity and billions of dollars to your treasury. Number two, you have to cut taxes. When we cut taxes in 2017, I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Everybody said, well, guess what? Revenue will go down. Well, in 2018, after we wrote it in 2017, what happened? Revenue went up by 3%, and the next year it went up by another 3%. So what we know is that the Laffer curve still works. The lower the tax, the higher the revenue. And finally, if we're going to deal with it, we have to take our annual appropriations back to pre-2020, pre-COVID levels of spending, which would save us about $500 billion in the next budget window. By doing that, we deal with Social Security and our mandatory spending.
Thank you, Senator. Very quickly, would you raise the retirement age? Would you be open to raising the retirement age, or do you rule that out?
All you have to do is go to a farm in Iowa and watch the hard work and the dedication.
Yes or no?
She asked you for an age, dude. Come on.
No, but listen to this, though, before you go on. Thank you. The fact of the matter is that the more physical your labor, a year or 2 or 3 more.
He's like the guy that's bungee jumping.
Actually challenging to the physical body.
I'm gonna tell you something.
You and I might have a different perspective, but for those farmers, they're working night and day.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Governor DeSantis, finally
Thank
to you.
you,
Would you be
Senator.
open to raising the retirement age, and how would you keep Social Security sustainable?
Well, look, as governor of Florida, I know a few people on Social Security, and I know it's important. My grandmother was 91, and Social Security was her sole source of income, and that's true for a lot of
Peter's
seniors
annoying
throughout this country. So what I'd say to seniors in America, promise made, promise kept. I understand what you're going through with the rising prices, and you need that Social Security check. So we'll make sure to get that done. What can you do to help shore up Social Security? One of the things that's causing problems is the inflation. We have to reduce inflation.
Yeah,
when
but
you
it
have
was in
higher
trouble
inflation,
before.
the seniors
Bad.
get a cost of living
You guys
adjustment,
keep
which means
saying
the
reduce
program's spending more, but
inflation.
it doesn't cover
How?
the increase in the actual
Explain how.
inflation
Well, you
rate.
eliminate
We
gluten
also
from
do
your
need to
diet.
get to at least 3%
exactly how you
growth.
do it.
You're
And
never going to
carbs.
be able to have issues be able to solve the budget without that. But I would
No
note
donuts,
this.
Christie.
Congress for decades took
It's
money
Ron,
from
don't be a
Social
little
Security.
bitch.
Social Security would have more tax revenue that it put out. They would take it and then they'd write an IOU to Social Security. Congress has a lot of dirty hands on this. I'm going to force Congress to stop spending so much money. And you know, one thing we have to do when we talk about the retirement age is just something that's changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Life expectancy in the United States is declining
So,
in
Governor,
this
yes
country.
or no? Would you raise it? Would you raise the retirement age?
When life expectancy is declining, I don't see how you could raise it the other
She's
direction.
asking
So
you
it's one thing to
question
peg it
and you're
on
still
life
looking at the camera
expectancy,
talking.
but we have had a significant decline in life expectancy in this country,
you
and
rule
that's
it
just
out.
the fact.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Thank you, candidates. And we will be right back after
None of them
a
answered
quick
if they're gonna
break
raise
from
the
Miami,
fucking thing.
Florida.
All right.
I'm assuming commercial.
Yeah, they said.
All right, don't press any. Yeah.
I pressed desktop audio. Hang on.
All right. Well, I was gonna say, since I have this muted.
Thank you, candidates. And we will be right back after a quick break from Miami,
Hold on. Since I have that muted.
Text stairs to Anna. Okay, yeah, it's muted.
Dude, that is hilarious.
Which part? Oh,
The stair counter. I'm going to check
That's
something
funny.
real quick.
that is funny.
Yeah, it's still cool. All right. This has been very
This has been the best
interesting.
debate by far.
Oh, my
Which,
gosh.
honestly, they're going to get better because as you get rid of the dead weight. You know.
Yeah. Vivek, dude, he's on fire.
Well, I think Vivek, like, it's funny. He's the only one who's smiling in the thumbnail. You realize that. I did that on purpose.
He's the only one up here. I mean, don't get me wrong. All of them have good talking points. But the thing is, Vivek, basically what he's talking about is running a business, and America is the #1 business in the world, whether anyone wants to realize that or not. And the thing is, you need someone with business sense. You don't need someone who's been in Congress for fucking 30, 40 years. You need someone with business sense. That's the reason Trump did so well. And the thing is, honestly, like, as long as you get, I know it's hard to get this, but if you get I love Kevin Sorbo.
Love Kevin Sorbo.
But if you get
Hercules,
someone in office, who's Republican and a business person, it's really hard for them to not essentially be a little corrupt from their business practices.
That's not necessarily
You're not.
true.
I know, but you're not going to find an angel who runs a freaking business.
No.
You're going to have
Angel-
some, but that's what I mean. I'm saying everybody has flaws, but the thing is, comparatively to a person who's been in Congress for 40 years who's done zero versus someone who's ran successful businesses, I'm going to go with the person who's ran successful businesses.
Well, not only that, there's this odd take, mostly on the left, but even some people on the right have this.
Sorry, guys, I would make us bigger, but I didn't have time set up tonight. So
yeah.
Anyway,
But there's this weird
It's whatever, you don't
perception that people that run businesses are like these heartless, like greedy. I'm not even going to say capitalist because capitalism is a great thing, but
it is.
that we're all greedy pigs that don't care about people, and it's just not fucking true. There's been a couple of times our company's been kind of tight, and we always make sure, like, we might not, we've had these conversations. It's like, well, if it comes down to it, like, we might not get paid, but our employees will. Like, we make sure that happens. And, I personal pride, like, tomorrow we have to unload a big truck. My guy's not doing that alone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm helping him because that's shitty. if we have a giant delivery, I go with them because it sucks. I've done it.
That's awfully kind of you.
Well, no, I don't want to be that guy.
No, I know. I'm joking.
Because
I'm just saying that's a good thing.
I've been on the other end. I've been the guy who's unloading the truck by himself and the boss is fucking watching.
Well, and that's another thing is a lot of people forget that the leader should lead by example.
100%, and that's my leadership style.
And then like exactly what we're talking about here is exactly how the president should be. But
yes.
Of course, I don't even want to get back. I don't even want to. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to get on Joe Biden right now. That sounds bad.
Motherfucker can't even
Joe
walk.
Biden.
True international effort to pressure.
Oh, I thought it was back on. Is it back on?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I think you may have muted it, or did you just press?
Welcome back to tonight's NBC News Republican presidential debate. Once again, here's Salem Radio's Hugh Hewitt.
Thank you, Lester. When NBC News talks to voters, when I talk to voters every day, they all say that the border is a top issue. It can mean a lot of different things. It can mean 2 million people who crossed illegally last year. It can mean more than 150 arrests of people on the terror watch list. It can mean the burden on states from having migrants move into their states from the southwestern border.
Anderson Cooper's
but
cousin?
I want to talk about opioids specifically and fentanyl, and I'll start with you, Senator Scott. Tens of thousands of Americans' families have suffered a death to fentanyl. Young people sometimes die taking one pill. What can you do as commander-in-chief on the first day to stop fentanyl and the waterfall of it into this country?
They've already answered
Number one,
this question.
we should close our southern border. For $10 billion, we could close our southern border. For an additional $5 billion, we could use the currently available military technology to surveil our southern border.
A lot of fentanyl is pouring through the ports
from crossing
through
our
Americans.
Border. I've already
so
led
how about
on
you guys do
legislation
better
that
there
is
too?
would sanction
there's a lot coming
the
across the
Mexican
border,
cartels. If you remember the path, the precursors come from China. Then they are manufactured in Mexican labs, and then the Mexican cartels bring them across our border. By sanctioning their accounts and eliminating their cash, we starve them of what they need. Number one, closing our southern border makes it nearly impossible to get in. The military-grade technology is a backup, making sure that we not only stop 70,000 deaths in the last 12 months because of fentanyl, it also allows us to deal with the human trafficking travesty that is entering in our country in the same path. If we are going to deal effectively with 100,000 overdose deaths in our country and the 70,000 that is directly linked to fentanyl, we have to deal with our ports of entry and deal with our southern border. If we do that effectively, we have started reducing the challenge from the outside, and then we have to deal with the challenge on the inside, which seems to be connected to a mental health crisis that is spreading throughout our nation.
Governor Christie, Senator Scott just mentioned ports of entry. 90% of the fentanyl that is seized in the United States is seized at ports of entry. We don't know what's coming in across the open southern border. You've been a United States attorney. You've taken on cartels.
People on coyotes.
Really be done quickly? What would you do as president?
It can be done quickly in two ways, Hugh, on fentanyl. The first way is exactly as you suggest, at ports of entry. We have to beef up what our law enforcement has in terms of technology. I would invest in that as president. We need to make sure that law enforcement has every tool at its disposal to do it. Secondly, on day one, I would sign an executive order that would send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol, both at ports of entry and at the open ports of our border. Customs and Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed. There's 200,000 encounters a month over the last 11 months. We simply do not have the man and woman power at the border to be able to deal with it. And so dealing with both law enforcement and you're right, we have done this, we can do this, but we got to give them the tools to do it, and technology is one of the biggest tools that we don't have enough of at the ports of entry.
He's right. He's right.
Now, we also need to lower demand, Hugh, in this country. And the way to lower demand is to start treating people again. You know, we started to do this before COVID, and we haven't done enough of it. And for every family out there tonight who has lost a loved one to fentanyl or to any other type of opioid overdose, what you know is all you want is a chance for them to win their lives back. When I'm president of the United States, we're going to call this what it is. It is a disease. like heart disease, diabetes, or any other disease like cancer that can be treated, should be treated. We not only have to stop supply, but we have to lower demand and save lives.
Governor DeSantis.
I'm not gonna
disease? No, because I'm sorry. There's no genetic factor that says I have to smoke crack.
Forces to attack the cartels where they manufacture the chemicals that come from China.
If there's a gene that literally is to do with smoking crack,
not specifically, but
well, first I was speaking to a dad who lost a son to fentanyl overdose. Son wasn't a drug addict. He had taken some pill that happened to be laced with fentanyl, and it was a fatal overdose. And when he told me, obviously the pain of losing a child is as bad as it gets, but he said what was salt in the wounds is that these elites in D.C. don't give a damn about what's going on in this country. They don't care that we have tens of thousands of opioid deaths, that the fentanyl's pouring in. They are not taking the type of action that we need to. We're declaring it a national emergency on day one. I'm sending U.S. military to the border. I'm going to stop the invasion cold. I am going to deport people who came illegally. And I'm even going to build the border wall and have Mexico pay for it like Donald Trump promised. How are you going to do it? Yeah, Mexico's not going to fork over money. We're going to impose fees on the remittances that foreign workers send to foreign countries. We'll raise billions of dollars. I'll build a wall. But we are going to designate the cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations or something. Fuck yeah! And we're going to authorize the use of deadly force. We're going to have maritime operations to interdict precursor chemicals going into Mexico. But I'll tell you this, if someone in the drug cartels is sneaking fentanyl across the border when I'm president, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to shoot them stone cold dead.
Ooh.
Ambassador
Not just
Haley.
dead.
Stone cold dead. That means he's gonna stomp a mud hole in his ass and walk it dry.
The United States uses special forces in Mexico without prior notice to the Mexican allies to our south. What would your colleagues at the United Nations...
And then I drank a beer.
I don't care what my colleagues at the United Nations say. What I'll tell you is...
What?
First of all, you have to go to the source. We have lost more Americans than the Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq wars combined. We lost 75,000 Americans last year. Go to the source. It is the reason why we'll continue to say we will end all normal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans. You watch how quick that flow stops. The second thing is we'll send special operations in to take out the cartels. We need to go to where they're distributing it, where the supply centers are, and take them out. We'll put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will defund sanctuary cities. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that everybody stays in Mexico and they never get here in the first place. And instead of catch and deport, we'll go to catch and release. I'm sorry, instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That is the way we'll deal with the border. Those are the things that we have to do going forward. But I do agree with Chris. One of the first things that we have to do is really focus on mental health and addiction centers. It is something that is needed in our country terribly because we don't deal with mental health, and someone who doesn't get care for mental health falls into addiction, and we owe it to them to treat it like the cancer that it is.
Well, you're not going to get them out. I think I know it's unpopular. You're going to have to do an amnesty package like Reagan did.
One thing I just want to say and how we're talking about this issue is, like Ron, I've actually met many parents across this country who have lost their kids to laced pharmaceuticals that have fentanyl in them. The only thing I would ask, Ron, I think you'd be on the same page with me on this. Let's not even call that an overdose. Right. That is not an overdose. That is poisoning. If you put that fentanyl in a Big Mac, we would not call that an overdose. You'd call it what it is. It's closer to bioterrorism. And I say that because as it uniquely relates to this crisis, that does warrant more aggressive means to deal with it. So there's a new presidential election in Mexico in 2024. People may not be aware of that. It's going to be someone other than Obrador, who has been a disaster in Mexico. I think he's even mentioned me obliquely in speeches to say that somebody who would do this shouldn't get anywhere near the White House. Well, AMLO, get out of the way. There's going to be someone else in charge. I hope to build a good relationship with that next president of Mexico. We'll use our own military to seal our own southern border. What we need to do is stop using our military to protect somebody else's border halfway around the world when we're short right here at home. Get serious about protecting this border. And then the other thing that hasn't been discussed is the northern border. I'm the only candidate on the stage, as far as I'm aware, who has actually visited the northern border.
You wouldn't think it
There was enough fentanyl that was captured just on the northern border last year to kill 3 million Americans. So we got to just skate to where the puck is going, not just where the puck is. Don't just build the wall, build both walls. Can't just complete the wall, use the military to seal the Swiss cheese for the tunnels that they're actually building underneath that wall.
Thank you,
Mr.
Ramaswamy.
Practical and actually get this job done.
Thank you.
Trudeau's about to get removed.
Thank you, Hugh.
I like that. I can't pronounce his last name. That Pierre dude.
Let's talk now about last
running
night's
for
election
president, not gonna
results. Abortion rights supporters saw
Kinda
victories in
reminds me of
Ohio
DeSantis,
and
though.
Virginia, following earlier wins in states like Kansas and Kentucky.
We need a strong
Governor
Canada
DeSantis,
toast.
first to you, how do you see the path forward for Republicans on this issue?
Well, I stand for a
if
culture
Pierre
of
wins
life,
it, he'll-
and I understand that it's important that everyone gets a shot.
back to normal.
I'm reminded
Although
of
I
a
don't think
story
he
about
runs until next
a young
year.
mother who was
Or
struggling in
2025.
Jamaica about 40 years ago, 45 years ago. She was counseled to not have a baby because she was poor, baby wouldn't have opportunity, and she came close to have an abortion, but she decided to have the baby, born poor in Jamaica. And the reason I know that story is because that baby girl ended up emigrating to the state of Florida, becoming a lawyer and a judge, and I appointed her to the Florida Supreme Court in August of 2022. We're better off when everybody counts. We're better off when we can promote a culture of life. At the same time, I understand that some of these states are doing it a little bit different. Texas is not going to do it the same as New Hampshire. Iowa's not necessarily going to do it the same as Virginia. So you got to work from the bottom up. You got to do a better job on these referenda. I think of all the stuff that's happened to the pro-life cause, they have been caught flat-footed on these referenda, and they have been losing the referenda. A lot of the people who are voting for the referenda are Republicans who would vote for a Republican candidate. So you got to understand how to do that. But let's just be clear. The Democrats have taken a position. They will not identify the point at which there should be any protection all the way up until birth. That is wrong, and we cannot stand for that.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in. Former President Trump has consistently blamed the abortion issue and how Republican candidates have talked about it for their electoral losses. How do you see the path forward?
I've said it before. I think you have to be honest with the American people. This is a personal issue for every woman and every man. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband Michael was adopted,
you pro-life,
and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, when you look post-Roe, a wrong was made right. They took it out of the hands of unelected justices and they put it in the hands of the people. And now we're seeing states vote. And what I'll tell you is, as much as I'm pro-life, I don't judge anyone for being pro-choice, and I don't want them to judge me for being pro-life. So when we're looking at this, there are some states that are going more on the pro-life side. I welcome that. There's some states that are going more on the pro-choice side. I wish that wasn't the case, but the people decided. But when it comes to the federal law, which is what's being debated here, be honest, it's going to take 60 Senate votes, a majority of the House, and a president to sign it. So no, we haven't had 60 Senate votes in over 100 years. We might have 45 pro-life senators. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president can ban these state laws. So let's find consensus. Let's agree on how we can ban late-term abortions. Let's make sure we encourage adoptions and good quality adoptions. Let's make sure we make contraception accessible. Let's make sure that none of these state laws put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty for getting an abortion. Let's focus on how to save as many babies as we can and support as many moms as we can, and stop the judgment. We don't need to divide America over this issue anymore.
Thank you, Ambassador.
What do you mean, you people?
400 years. That word has kept us down.
Senator Scott, I'd like you to weigh in.
I love this
How do you see the path forward, and what do you make of what Ambassador Haley just said? Do you see this as a consensus issue?
I know it's probably white, dude, but I was like,
well, I'm 100% pro-life. I have had 100% pro-life voting 100%? Record. I would certainly, as President of the United States, have a 15-week national limit. I would not allow states like California, Illinois, or New York to have abortion up until the day of birth. I certainly wouldn't not allow for governors, former governor,
religion out of it. It's fucking wrong.
Talked about
you know what prevented that, Tim?
We need a 15-week federal limit. 3 out of 4 Americans agree with a 15-week limit. 47 out of 50 countries in Europe agree with a 15-week limit. I would challenge both Nikki and Ron to join me at a 15-week limit. It is in our nation's best interest. And frankly, I think it's unethical and immoral to allow for abortions up until the day of birth. We have an opportunity.
It only takes 4 weeks to grow the search.
I know, but he just said 15.
From states like California, New York, and Illinois. I'd go a step further. In my parents' plan, we start by talking about funding, block granting resources to crisis pregnancy centers. We should support adoption. There are a number of ways that we can say to the expectant mother that we stand with you. We should not only be pro-life before the child is born, we should be pro-life after the child is born just as much.
Absolutely. Senator Scott, thank you. Ambassador Haley, your name was invoked. Would you support a 15-week federal limit?
Roe versus Wade
I would support anything that would pass because that's what would save more babies and support more moms. But you have to be honest with the American people, and I appreciate that Tim keeps calling me out for this. But Tim, there was a bill last year. Lindsey Graham sponsored it. You didn't even co-sponsor the bill. And then when you first were interviewed on this, when you ran, you wouldn't even say you were for 15 weeks. What I am saying to the American people is, let's see what we can agree on. Let's bring people together and decide what we can agree on. I will sign anything where we can get 60 Senate votes, but don't make the American people think that you're going to push something on them when we don't even have the votes in the Senate. It's important that we're honest about that.
Let me go to Mr. Ramaswamy. Would you support a 15-week federal ban, and what is the path forward on this?
I just want to say, I think Nikki Haley did invoke being honest, and I at least want to give credit to Tim Scott. He's honest about where he stood, and I think you should be honest, not making a political calculus, but to say, if a bill is served up, would you sign it? Here's my view on this. Speaking as a man, they say men have trouble speaking on this issue. I don't think we need to be that way. It was my home state of Ohio, I'm upset about this, yesterday, that passed a constitutional amendment that now effectively codifies a right to abortion all the way up to the time of birth without parental consent. Why? It's back to that Republican culture of losing. The Republicans did not have an alternative amendment or vision on the table. I know Ohio. I was born, raised, and I lived there. It's representative of the country. If in the state of Ohio we talked about access to contraception, adoption, and also here's the missing ingredient in this movement, sexual responsibility for men. We live in an era of reliable genetic paternity tests that are 100% reliable. So we can say men deserve more responsibility. So we can tell women we're all in this together. It's not men's rights versus women's rights. It's about human rights. And I come back to that case that Clarence Thomas spoke of. A pregnant woman walking down the street. She's assaulted. The unborn child dies in that assault. You find me one person in this country who says that that criminal does not deserve liability for that death. You won't find one. That says we share the same instincts on this issue, but we require, I believe, a different generation of leadership.
Shut up and let him cook.
Lead us forward and unite the country on this with honesty. Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. Shut the fuck up and let him talk.
Federal limits are important to a lot of Republicans. Where do you stand on this issue, and what is the path forward for Republicans?
For 50 years, conservative lawyers have been arguing that the federal government should have absolutely nothing to do with this issue constitutionally because it's nowhere in the Constitution. And then Dobbs comes and we finally gain that victory, which was the creation of a constitutional right out of thin air that didn't exist. And now we have people running to say, let's short circuit the states from doing what they need to do, and let's go right to some type of federal ban at a certain number of weeks. And people on the stage have been all over the place, 20 weeks, 15 weeks, 12, 6. Look, the Frowners were really smart. And this is an issue that should be decided in each state. And I trust the people of this country, state by state, to make the call for themselves. Now, it's going to lead to a lot of divergence. In Oklahoma, you can't get an abortion unless the life of the mother is at risk. In my home state of New Jersey, it goes up to 9 months that you get an abortion. I find that morally reprehensible. But that is what the people of our state have voted for. And we should not short-circuit that process until every state's people have the right to weigh in on it. But here's the bigger issue, Kirsten. The bigger issue is, and Tim began to touch on this, we're not pro-life for the whole life. To be pro-life for the whole life means that the life of a 16-year-old drug addict on the floor of the county lockup is precious, and we should get treatment for her to restore her life. The 52-year-old who's drug addicted should make sure that any of his children who he's passed that addiction on to are treated well too. Pro-life's not just in the womb, Kirsten. It's for the whole life.
All right,
Yep.
Governor, thank you.
Agree
Candidates,
with you.
thank you. We're going to take
So I
a
can't
final
find
break, and when we come
details.
back,
I'm not
we'll hear
pro-life.
from all of you
I
with your
can't
closing
find
statements.
details on the
This is
Ohio
the NBC
constitutional
News
amendment, but
Republican
nothing I
presidential
read out of
debate.
the
We'll be
paper.
back right after this.
Yeah, nothing said up to the point of birth. And a lot of that stuff is hyperbolic when Republicans bring it up, because take California, for example, and I'd have to look at the law, but from my understanding, it's technically they don't I think the answer is technically they don't have a limit on abortion, so theoretically it's possible, but it's not like it's happening all the time. Now, I don't think it should happen, period, but that I guess what's annoying me about the abortion debate is the fact that I've heard more than one candidate talk about doing things that Roe versus Wade did. Now, was it perfect? No, but everybody's bitching about, California being able to have abortions up to the point of birth. You know what prevented that? Roe versus fucking Wade.
Yeah, because it set a precedent.
Third trimester abortions were not allowed anywhere.
I don't think that Roe v. Wade was like perfect by any means.
No, it wasn't perfect.
But at the same time, like we said when we had our discussion about it, it was so out of left. It was so, we're like, what? I was like, with a Republican cock, like all this shit going on.
With a Republican cock?
Cock, yeah. I didn't finish that on purpose.
With a Republican cock.
But anyway, it's like, dude, it's like, with everything going on, how the hell did that?
Well, okay, so here's the answer to that.
No, it wasn't Republican.
No, Republican.
It was with Joe. Was Joe Biden in office? Yeah, it was after 2020. Yeah. Never mind.
That was in 2022.
Yeah. So that's why we were so confused. We're like, and then everybody was so up in arms about it. And we're like, oh, something worse is coming.
Yeah. Well, what's funny, this is why it happened. This is my impression of a Republican when they're winning.
I already know.
I've got victory in my sights. I got
the old Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
Oh,
something
man.
in the way. I mean, it's
Biden's in the way.
It's what Republicans do.
Yeah, unfortunately, unfucking-fortunately, except for the Republicans who aren't actually Republicans, and I'm not talking about rhinos. I'm talking about Republicans who aren't actually Republicans, and they run as Republicans.
Yeah.
Because whether anyone likes to admit it or not, I'm not going to say Trump's a Republican. He does not fucking act like a Republican whatsoever. He doesn't even have really the same policies, like a few here and there. Not here and there, I'm sorry. He aligns with, because honestly, a lot of the policies make sense.
Yeah, but Trump aligns with Trump. Let's not miss.
He's literally his own freaking genre.
That's why I said Trump could literally start a political party, and
he would have a bunch of idiots following it.
Well, yeah,
I'll vote for the guy, but I think you know better. I don't follow people blindly.
No, and neither one of us does.
And nobody should. Oh, I know you don't for sure.
Like, here's the thing: like, if the election were tomorrow, with the candidates that are available right now, well, actually, I take that back.
It's there.
Yeah, assuming Ron DeSantis wasn't able to run, like, let's say it was Biden, Trump, and Kennedy, I'd probably vote for Kennedy. Now,
easily.
Now, here's the thing: I don't agree with everything Kennedy says. Here's the one thing I've heard him say that I respect like hell. He said some things that I think, frankly, sound really conspiratorial. But right after he said that, he said, but look, I'm not saying that I'm not going to make the law. I'm just saying I want it looked into.
Right.
I'm like, yeah. I think he paused it on accident. I'm like, yeah. I hope Kennedy is able
everyone.
to
With
debate.
only
that'd be great.
2 hours for a debate, we know there are other major issues that are important to Republican primary voters. I'll ask you each to please use your closing statement to focus on any topic you didn't have time to address, and why you and not former President Trump would be the party's best choice to tackle these important issues.
I don't care.
You each have a minute. Senator Scott, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
There's a crisis that is growing in our nation, and that crisis is cultural and spiritual. We need a renewal, a great awakening.
Some water, friend.
Y'all motherfuckers need Jesus.
Valueless, faithless, fatherless society. We should turn back to faith, patriotism, and individual responsibility. We should stop choosing victimhood and start choosing victory. We should stop kneeling in protest and start kneeling in prayer. There are basic truths that built this country. If you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back.
I doubt he was.
If you commit a violent crime, you
racist,
go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I do not just want to.
Audience, please.
I do not just.
Oh, man.
I do not just want to win the battle against Joe Biden. I want us together to win the war. The war for our Christian conservative values that changed my life.
Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, you have.
That's why I'm asking you for your vote.
Wow, that sounded confident.
Thank you for hosting.
What I'm saying is y'all need Jesus.
The gift to be an American. And I'm running for president of the United States because I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing the division. I'm tired of seeing the anger. And I can see in the eyes of Americans their exhaustion.
Feeling right now.
Their exhaustion from the petty personal politics that have taken over this country
He really
over the
shouldn't
last
have put
number
that
of
pause
years.
there.
I'm running for president to be a president of consequence, to do the big things, to make sure that America's role in the world stays number one, that we stand up for our friends and allies around the world, and we stand up for what we believe in right here at home.
Warmonger, shut the fuck
up. It's not to
up.
eliminate our differences. Our differences has always been our strength as a country, not our weakness. But you can't truly say you love America unless you're ready to open up your heart to every American. I'm going to open up my heart to every American as president, and I will make sure that I return honesty, integrity to the Oval Office. We deserve and should accept nothing less.
I would like that.
Let's go to Mr. Ramaswamy.
I'd like some integrity to be returned to the office of the president. And it's not just Biden. It's
We've
not
talked
just
a lot about
Trump.
foreign wars tonight, but we're in the middle of a war right here at home. It's a war not between black and white or Democrat and Republican. It's between those of us who believe in our founding ideals and love this country and a fringe minority who hates the United States of America. And I think it's going to take a commander-in-chief to lead us to victory in that war, who first of all knows that we're in a war. Second of all, can't be captured by the special interests along the way. But third is from the next generation, somebody with fresh legs to lead us to victory. I'll shut down the deep state. I'll declare economic independence from China. I'll keep us out of World War III, and then revive national pride in this country. I also want to close with one message to the Democrat Party. End this farce that Joe Biden is going to be your nominee. We know he's not even the president of the United States. He's a puppet for the managerial class. So have the guts to step up and be honest about who you're actually going to put up so we can have an honest debate. Biden should step aside, end his candidacy now, so we can see whether it's Newsom or Michelle Obama or whoever else.
All right,
just
Mr.
tell us the
Ramaswamy,
truth so we can have an honest debate.
Ambassador.
Damn. He is not pulling punches.
Damn, boy.
Closing.
Thank you. The world is on fire.
My career is over.
We have a war in
How
Europe.
about yours?
We've got a war in the Middle East.
That's the way I
We've
like
got
it, and I'll
China
never
on the
get
march.
bored.
It is very important that we know how to defend our freedoms and how to defeat terrorism and socialism. We have to know the difference between good and evil. We have to know the difference between right and wrong. We need to know that a strong America doesn't start wars. A strong America prevents wars. And the way we can focus on that is to make sure we go back to the soul of America and be strong and proud again. And we can't do that.
I'm sorry, no, we just
You can't do that unless you're in the kitchen.
Of the 21st century with
I'm
politicians
sorry, no, we just
from
give
the
bombs
20th
to everybody
century.
else.
You want
We
America to
have
get back to
move
normal?
forward. And
Get back
we
in the
can
kitchen.
do this. I
Make
know
Daddy a
we can do
sandwich,
this.
just
So
like
join our
Andy-
movement.
or
Go to
Mackie said.
NikkiHaley.com, and
That-
we
I
will
think it's
once
his name.
again
Anthony
show
Mackie.
what
Anthony
America
Mackie.
that's strong and proud
You make
looks
Daddy
like.
a
God
sandwich.
bless.
Or,
Ambassador,
as
thank
you
you.
may know him better, Papa Doc.
Governor
This guy's a
DeSantis,
gangster?
you're
His
closing. You
real
have 1
name's
minute.
Clarence.
We must reverse
All
our country's
Hear what this
decline, and
kid's gotta
that is
say.
going to require leadership. I will take the hits, I will take the arrows, I will take the barbs, because it's not about me, it's about you. It's not about the past, it's about your future. We are going to fight for you.
It's also about your
I am
legacy,
going
but
to
it's
win
okay.
for you and your family,
Didn't
and I'm
he
going to
say that
lead this country's revival. As a veteran of the Iraq War and in the Navy, I will always put service above self as president. As the father of 3 young kids, I'm going to ensure that this country is left to the next generation in better shape than we found it. And as the governor of Florida, I delivered on all my promises, and you can trust me to deliver for you as the President of the United States. I am asking for your vote. I'll be a nominee that will be able to win the election. I will be a leader you can be proud of, and as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you.
Governor DeSantis, thank you.
That brought me really well. It just sounds wrong.
I know, it sounds funny.
That is
And
going
see,
to conclude
that's
our
the shame, 'cause
debate.
I know
the
he's
next line says that the
I
audience
believe
can hold
he
their
believes
applause.
it.
That didn't
Yes.
work out. But
Sounds
anyway,
so
for just a
phony.
few more
What
seconds,
is that
I'll ask you
smile?
to just hold the applause. On behalf
That
of
looks
my
like
fellow
Sin Eater.
moderators, I want to thank the candidates for their time and for this spirited debate. Really good, deep conversation, and we appreciate you all being here. Thank you as well to our wonderful hosts here at the Adrienne Arsh Performing Arts Center. On behalf of the Republican National Committee and all of us at NBC News, good night, everyone, from Miami.
I'm gonna come, man. So that was
significantly better than the other 2 debates.
that was. Let's see if I can get this done right.
12.
Eh,
That'll do.
that'll do, pig.
That'll do. There's just nothing you can do with this couch. When we build a new studio.
I know, right? So that was exactly what the title of the video told you. Shit.
What?
So that was definitely, yeah.
I like what I saw, except from Nikki Haley.
Yeah, she really tanked herself right there at the beginning.
Well, Vivek tanked her, but there was nothing she could do.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, he saw that.
He came out saying he knew what he was doing. He was very calculating. His goal tonight was to eliminate Nikki Haley from the race, and I think he did.
I think she got shut down so freaking hard.
Yep.
You know, with that CCP comment. Oh my gosh.
Oh, dude, you know what I just thought of? This would be really cool. RFK Jr. Tulsi Gabbard ticket. They're both independent.
Is he independent? I thought he was still running as Democrat.
Nope, he's running as an independent. That's
smart, man.
Yep. Well, the Democrats aren't going to let him run. They already know he's too dangerous.
Yeah, to their bank accounts.
Well, see, but here's the thing about, and this is what I really like about RFK. I'm not inherently against some of the values of the Democratic Party. The more, like the Democrats of the '90s, basically.
Yeah. Classic liberals.
Yeah.
Like people like Joe Rogan.
See, here's the thing, and the reason I like RFK as a choice too is because as much as I liked the Trump administration, because I was very happy under Trump, but you can't deny, whether it was his fault or not, I'm not saying it was his fault, there was a lot of division in the country, and it had a negative effect.
Yeah, but you have to look at who's causing the divide.
I agree, but here's the thing. I'm not so much interested in the cause. I'm interested in fixing the issue, and RFK can do that. Because RFK
Biden was supposed to be able to do that. I know.
But that's horseshit.
But who says that guy can do it? I don't think there's going to be any president that is going to hold on one sec. I don't think there's going to be any president that is going to be able to get everyone on board.
Not everyone.
Maybe like 60%, but like
I think
more than that is like.
I think RFK could get us to about 80.
You think?
But here's why. So this is a guy who very much talks like an old school Democrat. So,
he does.
So that gets your Democratic base, particularly the Democratic base that are, say, like 50 and over. Which, granted, that's not a huge number. This is also a guy who, and like this sounds weird, but it's I think, I know Andrew Tate said it, but other people have said it. Joe Rogan said it. You know, the dude is in shape ridiculously. And sorry, not sorry, when somebody's in good shape, they just kind of command a respect right out of the gate, as long as they're not a complete dick, which he's not. He's also got the goodwill of the Kennedy name attached to him. Even.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think you would probably know more. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you know if he's for small government?
Compared to a lot of other Democrats, yes.
Compared to his predecessor, well, whatever you want to call it, JFK.
Well, JFK wasn't exactly a big government president.
No, he was for small government.
And
a lot of people speculate that's why he was taken out.
So the vibe I get from RFK Jr. is, and
I would say the vibe I get from him is like middle ground government.
Well, yeah, it's a moderate, but and I'm gonna elaborate on that a little bit. So, and I will say RFK resonates a lot with me because it's very much how I view government. You can't eliminate government, but you can aim government, and the government's role should be to protect the rights of the people and to prevent exploitation in the marketplace. That's it. And what I mean by that
is
protection
the country.
Well, yeah.
All this. I know what you mean.
Threats. But so there's a lot of talk, especially from presidential candidates, about economics. Well, what RFK is saying is essentially what I say is like, listen, I love capitalism. I'm a dirty capitalist whore.
You're a dirty capitalist pig.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I'm not saying Amazon is well. You know what? I will sling some shit Amazon's way. Labor unions are out of control, but at the same time, like, let's look at Amazon as a company. You've all seen the pictures and the videos and read the stories about Amazon drivers that have to take pisses in cups because they're strapped for time. Amazon workers work in these giant-ass warehouses and get 10 minutes to take a piss break when it takes them 8 minutes to get to the bathroom.
I've heard a lot of that is just disgruntled workers. And I've seen a lot of videos and stuff like that, and like people working there, they're like, I don't know what these guys are talking about. It's not
I've heard both.
I'm just wondering if it's just like certain.
And it might be, but here's the thing. As a company, Amazon has the ability and the responsibility to standardize their practices. And all RFK is saying is like, well, yeah, and there are already mechanisms in place. You don't need to create a new organization. It's just you actually enforce the rules that are there. Amazon has to comply with labor standards. Point blank. And it varies by state, too. That's a kind of a crude example.
That's why that actually makes a lot of sense, because in some states it'll seem more harsh, but at the end of the day, it's their laws.
Exactly. 100%. And then you have corporations like Walmart who, and I'm not hating on Walmart. I work there, and it's not completely evil, but they definitely, and this is also the fault of government.
Kind of like how Google started out. Don't be evil. They literally had that on a whiteboard.
Yeah, I know.
For a long time.
Yeah. But so Walmart, for example, Walmart absolutely benefits from the welfare state because they pay their employees. They're not slave wages. I don't want to get hyperbolic here, but they could, as much money as they make, they could probably afford to pay more because a lot of their employees, I don't know what the percentage, I knew at one time, but I don't remember what it is offhand. A lot of Walmart employees are on welfare.
Assistance? Yeah.
And then where do they spend that welfare money?
Right there at Walmart.
Back at Walmart, yep.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
So Walmart is profiting off of the welfare state.
That's crazy.
So they're saving money and profiting. That's something that I don't know how you would stop it. But then here's the flip side. So RFK, before he dropped out and ran as an independent, he was a Democrat that was appealing to a lot of Republican, more right-leaning voters.
Well, and the thing is, it's not just his policies or what he says. It's also his name.
To a point.
That holds a lot in people's eyes because when they hear Kennedy, they think JFK.
Well,
they remember his small government talks.
Older people, yes, but I mean he's resonating with a lot of young people too, and that is.
You know why? Simply just because he's not Republican.
Well,
he's smart, and the way he says things is fine, but like the way he talks, I know he's getting better.
He's resonating with a lot of more conservative. I don't want to say conservative, but conservative leaning, and to me, he sort of is, the way he's talking sort of embodies what I believe personally the president should be, is somebody who is like, listen, I don't have all the answers. My job is basically to make sure that Congress isn't exploiting, the legislature is not exploiting the citizens.
How is he leading in the polls? Do you know? Or I'm sorry, how is he doing in the polls?
I'd have to look that up. I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering, because the thing is, if he makes it to a debate, I would definitely be watching that.
If he makes it to a debate,
I can't wait to hear that.
If RFK Jr., which he won't, they won't let him because they know what's going to happen. If RFK Jr. makes it to a debate,
he probably would win.
He'll eviscerate both of them on the debate stage.
You think he would eviscerate Vivek?
Yeah.
I was gonna say DeSantis. I could see, because the thing is, DeSantis is all about like,
I think they would largely agree on a lot of stuff.
No, I'm not saying they wouldn't disagree. I'm saying DeSantis. He a lot of his material seems prepared.
Yeah, if he can.
So therefore, you can't really like go off the cusp, you know, and then you'll lose your.
He can though, because
he can,
we've seen him
but
do it.
I feel like his campaign manager or whoever's helping him, they're like, listen, just stick to the script. And they tried to do that with Trump, and literally, because I remember, did you ever hear anybody talk within his campaign talking about him? They was like, just let Trump be Trump. You're not gonna get him to say what you want. Just do your best.
Honestly, I would recommend Ron take some improv classes, dude. I'm not being funny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, it just loosens you up to a bunch of just random people.
Dude,
that sounds really gay.
Hold the audience for a moment.
Oh, you got shit.
Real bad.
Oh, poopy.
It's like a thunderstorm. The worse it is, the shorter it is.
It's like a circle. It's like a shit circle. Oh, so people, I think that was another shit show that Donald Trump decided not to come to. I mean, I get why he's not coming, but, you know. Where is it? Oh.
I'm going to come.
No, you didn't. But anyway, like, you know, so Donald Trump, like, I'd like to know what he has to say about these issues. Maybe he should be watching this and just release his own video. I know he's leading right now, so, but regardless, no, it's just the third debate. You should have been here there, dude. But it is what it is. I feel like Jake's going to say something soon. I feel like he's typing as I speak. Waiting for it. Oh man. So yeah, predictions. Nikki Haley, she's done, in my opinion. Christie, I think he's gonna hold on for a little while, but let me see. Vivek, honestly, I see him going pretty much the distance. DeSantis as well. I think it'll be Vivek, DeSantis, Trump. I think they're all going to fight for it, and we'll see. But if Jake's right and some people get behind RFK, I don't know, man. He might take it if he has the right policies in hand, you know. But the wrong policies, I would hope that the American people are awake and paying attention, because policy matters. Like, people can say nice things all they want, but if it does not align with you, you know, politically, spiritually, what however faith-based, whatever you want to call it, you just have to, I don't know. But it is what it is. Yeah. I told you he'd comment for anyone in the comments reading. But I don't really have a whole lot more to add to this other than Vivek burning Haley. That was special. That was something special, and not in that type of special way. Oh man. So if anyone has made it this far into the podcast, well, I mean, I really wouldn't call it a podcast tonight. We are going to have a special guest on tomorrow, and his name is Kyler, and he has a TikTok, and he has, I'm assuming, all regular socials. I'm not going to put anything out yet because I'm not sure what he wants out there, but he is a self-fitness guru, whatever you want to call, and the dude is a beast, and he has a book that we are going to discuss tomorrow about basically stretching, like because a lot of people do not like get proper I don't know, ligament warm-ups, whatever you want to call it, because you know, they just go straight into working out, when actually you should probably spend anywhere from like 15 to 30 minutes like warming up and stretching before you work out, because as we get older, everything gets tighter. Some things, sorry, ladies. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. Jake's probably watching this going, man, he's just rambling. I need to hurry up and shit and get back in there. I don't know if he's still watching or wiping. But anyway, so Kyler's going to be on tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about, you know, all kinds of fun stuff with working out, you know, something that I don't do anymore that I need to get back into, you know, but it is what it is. I'm going to ramble on for as long as I can. If anyone is watching and you have any predictions, who do you think's going to win? Yeah, let's just say, who do you think's going to win the election? Leave in the comments, you know, and obviously leave a like, share the video if you don't mind. We could definitely use the watch time. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more to add. I'm about to text Jake. Be like, you done? I know. He's probably like, dude, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Well, this is that awkward part where we run out of things to say. Crowder's got 7.8 thousand people watching. Nice. Woman beater. Not really. Oh, man. Ah, there she is. You feel better? I've been in here rambling as much as I could.
Yeah, I know it's hard, isn't it?
Yes and no.
We're getting better.
We're getting better.
But anyway, in closing, the whole RFK thing is just, I think out of anybody that's running right now, he's probably not saying he's perfect, but I think he's probably the most unifying figure, or at least potentially unifying figure.
I agree. Unfortunately. Because, you know, Trump, you know, he has that animosity towards him, and it's never going to go away.
Well, and he, to be fair, I'm not saying, I said, fuck, our first episode, talking about Trump was unfairly cast as the devil before he had even been sworn in, before he'd even won the election in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Now that being said, he did nothing to help himself.
But at the end of the day, though, like, do you think he should have like given them any of energy, or should he have just been like, "Yeah, you're all stupid"? That's what what I would have been like. I would just be like, I don't really care. Just let my work speak for itself. That's exactly what I would do if I was in front of a bunch of reporters and they're all trying to call bullshit. I'd just be like, the work speaks for itself. I don't need to talk to you.
Well, no, here's what you do, because that Pierre guy, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last name, the guy who's running for prime minister in Canada against Trudeau. There's a video going around of him being interviewed by a journalist, and you know, the journalist is like, well, you know, a lot of people are saying that you're da da da, and he was like, who said it? And they're like, well, many people. He was like, which publications?
Exactly.
Trump could have done that.
That's the thing, though.
Instead of being like, listen, all of you are fake news. You're fake news. You know, you're all stupid, horse face.
I'm not saying.
Which, to be fair, is
Trump
funny.
Isn't sharp.
Oh, Trump.
He's sharp. But
Trump,
the thing is,
Trump
though,
is sharp enough to beat them at their own game, though.
Absolutely. But the thing is, what you were talking about, that the guy in Canada, because you were saying he's sharp.
Yeah, very. Yep.
So the thing is, though, like he said, you was this is the guy you're talking about, right? You were saying he was saying things that like. Did I get it confused?
The journalist was interviewing him and saying things like, well, certain people are saying that you're like, God damn it, what was it? I can't remember now. But basically saying like that you're right wing and you're an extremist or something to that effect. And he was like, who said that? Which publications? You know?
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, the guy had that spark in order to help him ask those questions. Trump, on the other hand, is how old?
You know what though? I don't. Trump's on a different level. He's
different eras.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Well, no, but
sorry,
I mean,
guys, I'm not trying to chew in your face.
All I'm saying is, I think Trump could have stuck up for himself and actually been more effective
in a better way. Yeah.
But here's an example. This is what Trump could have done. He said, "Really, I'm a racist. Name one racist thing that I've said."
And then they'll try to bring up something stupid.
That's the point.
No, they can't at all.
That's the point.
And it's like anytime anyone literally just says someone's racist, it's like, okay.
That's what I've said.
Where's
That's
the
what
proof?
I've said. I had a comments argument where the guy called me racist. I'm like, you're the one that brought up black people. Name one racist thing I've said.
Like, out of anyone I know, you're like the least anything when it comes to anything close to resembling that.
And it's not because I'm overly virtuous. It's because I don't give a shit.
Well, and on top of that, your favorite women are not white.
That's true.
And
but I blame white women for that. Do with that what you will, America.
You watch a Latino porn. Just kidding.
Latina.
Latina.
Not Latino.
Oh shit, I just gave it away for
That's a different
that's the dudes.
That's the hombres.
Oh man.
That, and I do enjoy busting out Spanish with unsuspecting people. That's fun.
Oh yeah. Because the thing is, like me, I just be like, what'd you say? I know a few things.
Gay?
Gay?
You know
gay?
That's the same word in
Gay?
Spanish, right?
Gay?
It's always funny, dude. There's this show that was from Argentina that I watched a couple years ago, and there's he's trying to pick up one of the characters trying to pick up chicks. So he's in college with his best friend, and his scheme is they're gonna join the drama club because, and I quote, and he says it in Spanish, is "Los hombres en las clases son gays." Just you say the guys in those classes, gays. I'm like, it's the same word. That's hilarious.
Dude, I got into I wouldn't say an argument, but like a little tiff today on Instagram, and this person, they said something about as a queer teen. I'm trying to remember exactly what they said. They said as a queer teen, blah 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 blah, blah something like that, and I thought it was a dude, right? It was not. It's not a trans. It's not a trans, by the way. It's just a girl. But anyway, so I thought it was a dude, and literally, I responded back with something like, I don't know, like something, but like, I said the staggering statistic of how many LGBTQ whatever alphabet army. I said the staggering statistic of how many are actually abused sexually as children is astronomical. It's insane. And I literally said gays create gays. And you know, I'm talking for the majority, not minority, because I'm sorry, there are some people they're just gay. Like, and then they were never touched or anything like that.
Well,
and it's a minority.
Not to get off topic, but you
Well, hold on. So the majority, you know, blah blah blah. But anyway, so that person said they said that something, oh, you don't even know who I am, this and that, and then they said I have a girlfriend or something like this, and at first I was like, oh, okay, and I thought it was a guy, and I commented back and I said, oh, my bad, I thought you were a chick, or I'm sorry, I said my bad, I thought you were a dude, but I said, well, I mean, your vibe was really gay AF. Yeah, it was a lot funnier than when I read it. Anyway, what was you saying?
I forgot.
Oh. Well, it was just like all a joke thing. There was nothing serious on my part. but everyone else is always serious, you know, because that's just unfortunately how America has to be. You won't make it out of this life alive anyway. Why be serious constantly? It's exhausting. Tell a joke.
Laugh a little.
Even if you're the joke.
Sometimes those are the best kinds.
Oh yeah, I love doing that shit.
Like when you insult your own intelligence on a podcast that you do, and then people call you.
Oh yeah,
stupid. It's like,
it's more like below average intelligence,
and it's
just like, oh.
Did they think we're not?
Got me.
Did they think we're not in on the joke?
I know, right?
We named it.
It's like, you got me. You got the tater.
Like, it's a chimp in a fucking suit.
If you can't deduce from that, like,
maybe
you need to deduce the fuck up out of here.
Maybe you're below average intelligence. Dude, I will consider us have made it when we hear Donald Trump say average intelligence podcast.
I'm fairly certain he'll probably be dead before we're famous.
Probably.
If we're famous.
But we can laugh. I mean, we can dream, not laugh. Well, we can laugh. But
you know, the thing is, though, like, with most YouTubers nowadays, even if they have, like, 60,000, maybe 100,000 followers, that's not really even still considered famous.
No.
Famous would be, like, millions of followers, like, you know, Beast and How to Beast.
Yeah, which I wouldn't even...
How to Beast, how many does he have?
He's well over 1 million, but the thing of it is like, I don't even consider him super famous. Because you'll find the YouTubers that, quote, get famous cross into other... And that's what gets you famous. But
yeah, basically, if you have a following somewhere else, you try to bring it all into one place to get a huge following in one place.
We're trying to reverse that trend with which we might as well just go ahead and make that the sponsor of tonight's episode, the Arte Podcast Network, which, by the way, I incorporated yesterday. Yeah, so it's done.
Ooh.
So it's legal on paper. Virus is very happy because he's like, and now we can't get sued.
Well, you guys personally.
Yeah, that's what I meant, but which we're not going to get sued. But there's a lot of happenings coming. So Again and Forever is starting their podcast.
Who's the proprietor?
What do you mean?
Like who's the person attached? Do you have an attorney?
No, it's
or
me.
Is it you? Okay,
yeah, it's me. You can do it as an individual.
She did too.
Yeah,
my wife.
Which I don't know if that changed, but I was told you couldn't, and I was like, that seems really stupid. But yeah,
that's what we're talking about. What the guys on the stage tonight were talking about was fucking business regulation, government regulate, all of it. You know, you got the government makes it so fucking hard for someone to get a simple thing.
It's really not that difficult.
No, I'm not talking just you. And I'm not talking just your situation. I'm talking business in general. Like, she had to, like, you know, and you shouldn't have to pay an attorney to fucking file an LLC.
You don't.
You don't have to. But the thing is, you probably should.
Nope. You can go right on the government website. It takes you 10 minutes.
No, it does not.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, do they have a thing laid out on how you do it?
Yes.
Because she had to go through 4 different things and correct things that the fucking thing gave her because of her type of business.
And
not her type of business, like what she sells, but like just the sole proprietor bullshit. You know, like
she's doing a sole
LLC.
proprietor. They're 2 different things. And now, to be fair, I think they may have streamlined it because I was shocked how easy it was. So maybe they did go through and streamline it because I filled out the application. Well, it's not an application.
It's been over a year, so
yeah, I filled out the form and submitted my articles of incorporation for an LLC and then applied for my EIN number federally in less than 20 minutes.
You know, it's a good thing you did that in Indiana, where the taxes are much lower comparatively to where he lives.
Oh yeah, fuck no, I wouldn't have done that. Absolutely not.
But what's the name?
Arte Media LLC. Which actually, Papa D corrected me. And here's the thing, because I'm a nerd. When I decided to name it that, I actually did a lot of research, and I couldn't definitively, because there were various sources saying different things. So I looked at the ancient Greek alphabet pronunciation, and that's where I came up with Arete. But apparently, according to Papa D, who's from Greece, it's Areti.
That makes more sense.
because technically in the Greek alphabet they are two different E's, but in English we only have one, so it's unclear. So it is technically RT Media.
RT Media. I like that.
I like it too. And it was funny because you
could say it either way and it still sounds cool.
Yeah, technically you're correct. But it was so funny because that didn't come up during the podcast I did with him. We were talking afterward and I'm like, fuck me.
It's like, why wouldn't you said that during the podcast? That would have been such good content.
But I didn't think about it either.
I know.
Like,
I meant him.
That's
hey,
what he said. He was like,
you're aware that it's RAT.
He didn't notice though. He didn't notice the name.
Probably because you didn't say
exactly.
it.
Well, no, I said RT podcast at the beginning, but I guess I don't know. I guess it didn't click. You know, we're speaking English. You know, blah 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 whatever. And then Haley, the return of the Part of Your Broadway World podcast is coming on Friday. She interviewed a social media influencer who's been covering the actors and writer strikes. So that's going to be a really interesting episode. I think it's premiering at noon on YouTube, but if you go ahead and follow Part of Your Broadway World on YouTube, you can see it when it premieres.
Well, you can also check on rtamedia.org.
Yeah. Now, the audio podcasts usually go up the next day, but it's all pretty streamlined. And then, like I said, Again and Forever starting their podcast. The band is doing one. Virus has something on the go that I cannot divulge yet, but it's going to be a really cool one.
Damn, man.
Now, the one thing I can divulge, and it's the most recent blog post, America, do you like to play Dungeons & Dragons?
I've never played.
Just say yes and we'll move on.
Yeah.
Would you like to win $5,000?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, guess what? You can do both. If you join the... Technically, I don't think the campaign... Yeah, it is. I can never remember it. But basically, we are going to do a live... Basically, a radio drama out of a Dungeons & Dragons game, and we're pulling out all the stops. Players are going to be in character with costumes in the Zoom meeting because it's all going to be... It's done online. But there are going to be NPCs with actors in full makeup joining the stream as their characters come in.
That sounds cool as fuck.
I know. I'm very, very psyched. And if you like radio dramas, you'll want to tune in on Toon Talk 2.0's most latest episode, which will be premiering on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, because we start listening through and breaking down the radio drama of Star Wars A New Hope that was produced by the BBC in 1978. You can be. We need players because we need a few more players to get it going.
I've never played it.
That's
not something you can just like hop into.
Yeah, I've played it, but I'm not very good. I didn't play a lot.
It was like when everybody back in high school was playing that cards game. What was it? Hearts?
Magic the Gathering. Oh yeah.
I couldn't figure that shit out for nothing. I mean, I had no interest in it, so that's why. Yeah. Magic was pretty awesome.
Magic is fun.
Which we ADHD also and can't sit still. So.
But we also interviewed, and he's been on the podcast a couple times. I can never remember his last name. Alexander Sakal, who is a world-ranked Magic the Gathering player, and is now a professional poker dealer.
Damn.
Very interesting guy. Very cool guy. He's been on the podcast a number of times, but he was in the second episode where we talked about Magic. So you can get all that and more, including this podcast.
I mean, what more can you ask for?
You can. And if you've got an idea for a podcast, reach out. You can reach me at jake@rtmedia.org.
Reach out and touch me.
Or you can hit me up on Instagram.
Or DM works.
Slide in. And we can help you get the old podcast started. You can be just like Haley, our friend Haley.
She's doing pretty well.
Yeah. And she was on she was on last week's episode. I forgot where we tore Disney's Snow White. We tore Disney's Snow White a new asshole.
You know, the thing is, I keep seeing on, of course, Republican publications that she has still been fired.
She's not been fired. This? Nope, she's not been fired.
Now, are they rewriting?
I don't know about that, but
I heard something about they're rewriting and she got fired. And I was like, I heard that she got fired, and like no one has confirmed it.
She didn't get fired because she was in the press release. Which is the whole reason we had the podcast. But what they did do was, you remember the diverse cast for the dwarfs that were no longer dwarfs?
Oh, they're redoing that.
Yeah, they're CG dwarfs now.
Yeah, but even though they're CG, they're still fucking too tall.
Well, yeah, but you're missing the point.
There was like 3 of them that were small, and then the rest were like 6, 7 foot tall. I'm like,
so the
dwarf.
So the whole point, though, of having the diverse cast was inclusion. And instead of doing what they should have done from the beginning, which is hire 7 dwarf actors in Hollywood that are working.
That's inclusion. That's inclusion.
Inclusion of a group that usually doesn't get a lot of steady work.
Yeah.
You know.
So give them work and pay them well. I mean, y'all are about pay your fair share.
It's fucking Disney.
I know. Disney, man. Like, they're basically Republicans. If you want to say, they just shoot themselves in the foot all the time.
But the irony we point out is that as the Actors Guild is on strike, with one of their major bones of contention is the use of AI to create digital characters, Disney gets rid of their diverse inclusion casting and is probably using their voice still, but with CG. I don't know that, but I would assume they are.
Oh, dude.
And doing CG dwarves.
I tell you what, man. Like, if anyone wants to, like, truly, like, be for the American people, or I'm sorry, the people of Earth, just do away with AI.
Welcome to
certain
Earth.
AI. Yeah, welcome to Earth. Like, AI that's, I don't know the differences between severities of levels, but just AI in general. Like, I'm not afraid of AI, but I mean, did we not watch Terminator? Like, did we not watch The Matrix? Like, let's learn our lesson.
Well, guys. And let's be real. The AI that everybody's talking about right now is not actually AI.
Chat GPT? That shit's pretty fucking crazy.
It's still
and there are certain AI robots that have like crazy, I would say vocabulary.
As of right now, they're still have to be base programmed.
And that's the thing. I'm not saying right now.
It's coming.
I'm saying it's coming. And the thing is, Elon Musk is very against it. Like, he understands that certain AI is beneficial for humans.
I think the key is to not give it a face.
I think that's because then you give it a personality.
Because human beings are very, very bad about anthropomorphizing things. Once something is that's how you can have what's a good example here?
God.
No,
I'm not shitting you, because the thing is, if someone says, if a religion says that God made humans in his likeness.
Not where I was going with it, but yeah, I see your point.
But the thing is with that, it's like, if you really want to get down to it, and I'll excuse anyone for my religious talk here, but I wouldn't really say it's religious talk. But if anyone really says that God, would resemble humans, you're funny. Because the thing is, if he does exist, which I do believe he does, I don't think he looks anything like us. I don't think he is anything like us. I think he's a ball of energy with consciousness. That's it. Because energy cannot be created nor destroyed, so blah, 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 it can only be transferred.
But where I was going with that is, take Charlotte. Most people.
I had that argument today.
Most people, if they're not outright afraid of spiders, do not enjoy them. Okay, but when you give it a human-esque face and give it a voice, you get Charlotte's Web.
But if you take Lion King and take away the faces and give them real stuff, it's an awkward-ass movie.
Well, right. The reason Lion King works as a movie is because they have. What do they have? They have
expressions.
They have big-ass eyes where you can see expression, and they smile, which lions don't actually smile.
They were like Japanese manga.
There's a reason the eyes are huge.
Yep. They got really big eyes and a really small mouth when it's closed, and then really big when it opens up.
I watched that the other day.
That's hilarious. Is it still up? Or
it's on TikTok now.
Is it on TikTok?
Yeah.
I didn't know if the website was still up.
I think it is, but
I don't see why it would ever go away.
Yeah, but they're putting it on TikTok now too.
Email.
But it's okay because they're going to ban the TikTok, and then they're going to have to find another home.
Going back to the TikTok thing, and it's like at first I was on that page. I was on that, and then I
watched the hearings.
Well, I watched it wasn't really the hearings that did it for me. It was just literally watching TikTok, and I was like, what information are they collecting off of me? I'm just like, don't get me wrong,
dude.
Collecting information and selling it is fucking stupid. but the algorithm literally sent me things that made me a lot of fucking money.
But let's also not pretend
With
that
my work.
Facebook doesn't do the same thing, that Google doesn't do the same. Dude, I'm not even shitting you. This is a true fucking story. There's a competitor of ours that went out of business and they got bought, so they didn't change the name. It's called Click Studios. I was standing in my warehouse, phone in my pocket. We just talked about it. And within 2 hours, I was seeing ads for Click Studios in my Facebook feed. So don't fucking tell me.
Yeah.
I've never Googled that on my phone. Ever.
Was it on Facebook, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. Facebook listens to you.
That's what I'm saying.
I deleted that shit off my phone fucking a year ago.
So let's not pretend that Facebook, Google, all the other companies do the exact same shit. But here's the thing.
Turn off that microphone access, man.
It doesn't matter.
The camera. No, I'm saying Apple, believe it or not, man, like supposedly they're very against what is it? Collection of
data mining and all that, yeah.
But, you know, at the end of the day, motherfucker, you probably sell shit too.
Oh, dude, like
Apple, I guarantee.
We met with a like an advertiser. And I'm not gonna lie, some of the digital shit they can do, they're trying to sell us on, is downright freaky. You know what they can do? It's called geo-targeting. So we can, if we so choose, we can identify
geolocation.
No. Get this, we can identify certain competitors, and when someone goes there, they then get inundated with ads for my business.
Damn,
that's a thing that can be done.
Do you want to call it, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's call it.
Okay, I was saying because I literally have to get going in a second to go use the restroom.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, thank you for enjoying this episode of the Average Intelligence Podcast. Hopefully you're a little bit less average and a little bit more intelligent, but sorry. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe it. Check out the other videos. Check out the shorts. Tell your friends. Tell your mom. Tell your enemies. Tell the Democrats. Don't tell the Democrats. They'll find us anyway. Doesn't matter. And if you prefer to listen to the podcast rather than watch it, which for this one I don't know why you would, because half the fun is watching the people's facial expressions, but there are episodes that might be more conducive to a listening audience. You can check us out on all the audio streaming platforms, including not limiting to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, YouTube Music, Podcast Addict, Audacity, not the audio editing program. Apparently there's a podcast platform called Audacity. Yeah, basically if it has podcasts, we're probably there. iHeartRadio. So yeah,
it was fun and real, but not real fun. Actually, it was actually really fun.
It was pretty fun.
Goodbye, everybody.
I'm gonna come.